Calling to order the Monday, May 14, 2018 City of Berkley Budget Work Session. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Blanchard.
Here.
Councilmember Dean.
Here.
Councilmember Gavin.
Here.
Councilmember Hennan.
Here.
Councilmember Stedman.
Here.
Mayor Turbrack.
Here. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? So moved. Support. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, supported by Councilmember Gavin. Ms. Boucher, any additions or corrections? Seeing none, Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Blanchard.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Turbrack.
Yes. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag right over there. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is now time for citizens' comments. You may speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda. If you have a question, please make sure that you sign in on the sheet provided. When you come up, state your name, consider addressing us. Seeing no citizens' comments, we will move on to our order of business. Ms. Boucher, would you please read the first item?
PowerPoint presentation, matter of receiving PowerPoint presentation.
Is there a motion to receive that presentation? So moved. Support. Moved and supported. Ms. Boucher, would you please call the roll?
Dean.
Yes.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennan.
Yes.
Stedman.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Blanchard.
Yes.
And Turbrack.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to open the presentation by introducing a new member of our staff. Whereas John has been leading our finance department in the interim capacity, I want to introduce Ms. Ginger Burke-Miller, CPA, who is today beginning her new role here as the finance director for the city of Berkeley. So she will be instrumental in carrying this process forward from today and implementing the budget that's eventually approved by the city council. We're excited to have her on. We're excited to have a permanent full-time director on board. I want to give credit to John, who has done a great amount of work to deliver this document to you. And no offense, John, but I want to give even bigger credit to Lori Fielder, who, as always, has done yeoman's work on this budget, more so this year than probably any other year since she's been here. She has done literally, I hope you don't mind me saying this, it's not a HIPAA violation, literally made herself sick this year working on this document, countless hours. Lori cares more than any other individual that I've met. And this year has not been an easy year on our staff, but the information you have in front of you now and the implementation of this budget will certainly be a credit to Lori's hard work on this. So thank you to both John and Lori for getting us to this point. As you know, the work session, the intention here is to go over some of the proposed budgets. They are just that. Both the narrative and the numbers you have in front of you are proposed, open to discussion. We will be noting items that are admittedly corrections that need to be made both in the narrative and the numbers you have here as we kind of discuss the intent of this budget, the goals that we feel are being realized through the appropriation of resources, and then talk about some of the issues that we're facing now and into the future with our revenues and the capital needs of the city. I think that's the best way to sum this up is I've been referring to this as a maintenance budget, when we invest heavily in capital and the intent to continue to deliver services to the residents of the city of Berkeley in appropriate facilities and with the proper equipment. So with that, I will turn it over to Interim Finance Director, Mr. John Pepperman, and who's going to take us through a slideshow presentation here. Comment, we're going to be going over, as I said, general fund revenues, with a discussion on specific on property taxes review, state share revenue, and then talking about charges for services, how that changes from years past, and then some of the other revenue sources that make up the general fund revenue. And then likewise, we'll be going through our general fund expenditures, well, salary fringes, contractual services, and capital outlay, some of our three biggest areas for appropriations this year. And then finally discussing the fund balance and how the revenues versus the expenditures affect that number. As you see from the agenda here, we'll be going through the following departments. The number out to the side is the department number. Makes it a little bit easier to follow along in the book and find those departments. Again, we present to you for the second year in a row a multi-year budget. This slide remains relatively unchanged from the year previous. We are still seeing advantages in how we predict expenditures, how we forecast our revenues, as well as how we sort of plan for the next year. I think it's second year, it's gone a little bit easier. It's certainly been a benefit to our directors, who have always been very forward-thinking individuals, but at least now we're looking at what the actual, how that affects their numbers, both in revenues and expenditures for the next year. It also helps us gauge when rollovers need to occur, that is projects that need to be moved from one budget year to the next. And then we have the same challenges, variables in the local economy, and projecting revenues versus expenditures is always difficult, especially in the second year. But this at least gives us a template to work off of from budget year to budget year. We're still very happy with the multi-budget platform. All right, John, you want to discuss some of the assumptions that went into this budget?
Thank you, Mr. Baumgartner. Some of the assumptions for fiscal year 2019, our taxable value increased 6.6%. We had a millage rate decrease of 1.75%, which yielded an estimated overall tax revenue increase of 5.9%. Our state shared revenue went up from 2018 to 2019 of 6.6%. We are planning a 2% salary increase. Our health care for both active and retired employees is 9.8%. Our MERS pension cost is going up 10%. Our public safety pension cost is going up 6%. We're going to see a decrease in capital improvement. Am I saying that right?
Capital improvements plan.
Capital improvement plan of about $500,000, and an increase in capital equipment replacement plan of $1,048,058. The largest driver in that is the new aerial ladder fire truck of about $900,000.
One of the reasons you see a decrease in the CIP request is that we wrapped up the Harvard Road project, which was a substantial investment in the city's road network.
So, pie chart of our general fund revenue. The largest part of our general fund, it comes from property taxes at about 59%. State and federal sources are 11%. Our transfer in from water and sewer are 9%, and Matt will speak to that in a moment. We have charges for services of about 8%. Licenses and permits make up 6%. And then miscellaneous property and equipment rentals and fines and forfeitures are each 2%, and investment earnings are 1%. And if you want to talk about the transfer.
Yes, as John said, this year we're showing a transfer in from the water and sewer department, which means it's up to 9%. And you'll see in the narrative, we discuss a total estimated revenues of $11,212,500, about $11.2 million. This does not take into account the transfer you see reflected here. In total, property taxes typically are up somewhere around 65% or so, as noted in the narrative. We'll update that portion to reflect the transfer, but I just want to note the uniqueness of a transfer from the water and sewer department, and that is for a specific item that we'll address as we move through this process here. But this is not typical for what we see in the revenue breakdown. Just want to note the uniqueness for this fiscal year.
Property taxes, Proposal A. As we all know, Prop A has a limiting effect on the amount of property taxes that can be charged and collected. You are limited to 5% For the rate of inflation for this fiscal year is 2.1%. For example, a home last year with a taxable value of $75,675 with an inflation rate factor of 2.1% now has a taxable value of $77,264.
And as John said, that is on existing properties. So where the previous slide noted a 6.6% increase in total taxable value, that is mostly driven from new investment in the community, whether it's new builds, remodels, renovations, new projects. So existing homes saw only a 2.1% increase, or I guess all existing properties, whether they be homes or not, saw we're limited to 2.1%.
Taxable value versus state equalized value. Notice from 2010 through about 2014, the line is very narrow in the difference between your state equalized value and your taxable value. A lot of it had to do with the Great Recession. As you've noticed, the line have now started to get wider between the two because you are limited as to how you can raise taxes, and state equalized value is more closely represents what the market value is for a home. So that's why you have such a disparity between the two. Your taxable values are kept low because of Headley, or state equalized values equal if you went to a realtor, say, and asked, okay, what's my market value of my home? This will more closely represent what your market value is. And the effects of the Headley rollback. With our millages, four millage items, your operating levy, your approved operating levy increase in 2014, public safety levy, and the sanitation levy total 19% as original levies. With Headley rollback today, we're down to 12.3202%, or 12.3202 mils, a loss of 6.6798 mils. That results in a loss based on this year's taxable value of $2,254,000 that we can't collect in taxes because of those limitations. Okay. 2019 property tax values or changes in our estimates. Our millage rate, as you can see, has declined again from to a total general levy of 12.90 to 12.6735. Total special 2.2733 to 2.2348. Total from 15.1746 to 14.9083. That generates $8.2 million of tax revenue to the city of Berkley. Our historical property tax rates. Notice back in 2015 was around 17.5. It's now down in 2019 to 14.9. One of the larger drops taking place between 2016 and 17, which was due to the retirement of a debt. So that decreased the rates.
So you see the difference in this portion of it versus this portion of it, we retired debt. Next retirement of debt will occur in 2021 when we pay off the debt associated with 11 Mile Road. And then that will bring the city down to zero debt with there being, if there's no changes between now and that point.
What happens to our average homeowner? You have an average home value of about $151,350. Taxable value back in 17 was $75,675. New taxable value with 2.1% inflation factor is $77,264. So your millages in 2017-18 were 15.17. Millage rate dropped 14.9. The value went up. So what's the impact? Paid $1,148 in taxes in 2017. In 2018, it goes to $1,152, about a $4 increase. A very modest increase. State shared revenue. If you notice, back in 2000, we were just shy was about $2 million in state shared revenue. In 2019, we're now down to $1.4 million in state shared revenue. That is an increase over last year. So we're very, very happy that we're getting an increase, although it's not as much as it has been in the past.
You note the two different types of revenue sharing there. For those unfamiliar with it, there's a statutory revenue sharing and a constitutional revenue sharing. The constitutional is the portion that is driven by sales tax that the legislature is unable to change or alter the formula in any way. That is where you see the growth in revenue sharing over the last few years. The statutory portion has remained relatively flat in each of the last few years. So where the state is able to withhold funds from the local governments, they certainly have exercised that ability. What they can't do much about is the constitutional portion. Again, for anybody listening who hasn't already done so, SaveMyCity.org has done a very intensive and long-term study on this item. Save My City is an offshoot of the Michigan Municipal League. Our advocates in Lansing and throughout the state and at the federal level as well, they have done a very deep dive on this and have found that over the course of the last 15 years or so, the city has not been able to realize about 5.5, probably closer to $6 million at this point. So that's money that should have gone to the local government, and Berkley is by no means unique in that, but that is where the state could have kicked in and opted not to in an effort to balance their own books on the back of the locals. But thankfully we have, as the economy starts to come back, as consumer spending increases, you see sales tax numbers start to rise accordingly, and that's where we see some of our increases in the constitutional revenue sharing. We're still by no means to the level we were back in 2000, what we'll call the golden days.
Charges for services represent 8.8% of the general fund revenue. It is estimated the city will earn $991,070 in 1819. Revenues in this category consist of breath test fees, garbage bags, library service, internal service labor, dispatch service, and we anticipate an $18,000 increase with the signing of a new contract with Huntington Woods. Our animal control services, grass and weed cutting, gas sales to, I believe it is to Berkley schools.
Berkley schools and Huntington Woods. We basically we cost share with them on fuel as well as salt.
Our cable franchise fees and public safety services.
Those are not services anybody wants to take advantage of.
Other revenue highlights, those are the lesser amounts of licensing and permits, are about 5.8%. Our change in builds gone from 32 in 2015 to 46 in 2016, down to 35 in 2017. Fines and forfeitures are 2%. Investment earnings are about 0.5%. Property and equipment rental, 1.8%. Contributions and donations, 0.4%. Miscellaneous, 1.4%. I'll pass on reading what's there. And transfers in of 9.5%.
Two items to note on this is licensing and permits. We anticipate that the largest years of new construction are likely behind us, and that will come back down to a more predictable level from year in and year out. Our high was certainly, I think, will always be the 2016 numbers, where there were 46 new builds. That number, I think, will come back down to earth a little bit, and we're budgeting accordingly, both in expenditures as well as revenues. And then on the transfer side, again, noting that this is driven solely, that 9.5 is so high this year because of the transferring from the water and sewer. That is not, we don't typically depend upon that for the city's revenues.
The general fund expenditures, salaries and fringe benefits make up 69% of our budget. Capital outlays are 16%. Contractual services are 8%. Other charges, 4%. Materials and supplies and other financing sources, 3%. Utilities, 1%. And insurance, 2%. For total expenditures of $12,578,092.
And this number is also higher than is our typical because of some capital expenditures.
Salaries and fringes for FY19, we're looking at $7,966,215, about $342,613, or 4% greater than 2018. This includes active salary fringe as well as retiree health care costs. Our all-fund salary costs increased 4%, even though you saw 2% earlier. It has to do with adding one new DPW staff, which used the number up a little bit. Our healthcare costs increased 9.8% from the prior year, which includes retirees moved to a Medicare Advantage Blue Cross Blue Shield plan in 2017, which helped save us money, and also the self-funding platform through Blue Cross Blue Shield. We were trying to pick ourselves off the floor earlier this year when they told us they were going to give us a 29% increase in costs. That was well above anything I had ever dreamed would happen.
If you recall previous years, we were projecting 10% increases year over year on retiree healthcare costs. When our agent of record, who helps us with our health insurance, came down, sat down, and said Blue Cross Blue Shield has come across with 29% increase. We were, as John said, we're not able to easily collect ourselves after finding that out. Thankfully, working with the agent of record, they did pitch to us a hybrid self-funding model in which the city will assume more of the healthcare risks. And this does a little bit deeper dive in their experience. Instead of painting with such a broad brush as the formula that yielded the 29%, they actually looked at specifically at our experience. That is the healthcare, the way that our employees and retirees utilize their healthcare services, and then found that it was actually really good compared to the average model. So our experience level is much lower than you would typically find, which made us a good candidate for a hybrid self-funding model. So between having a good experience level, our employees being relatively healthy, and basically assuming the stop-loss insurance funded through this platform, we were able to move to a hybrid self-funding model without making any changes to employee benefits, thankfully. So our employees will not know the difference, same card, same everything. But on the administrative side, we're being billed a little bit differently, and thanks to Darshell and Sue Redden as well, who helped us work through that process. But certainly a lot of this credit goes to Arthur Gallagher and Company on helping us find a different path forward that headed off significant increases in this expenditure.
Required pension contributions are increasing again. Public safety is up 4%, and our MERS, merit, and DPW increased 9.8%.
You'll see this is a note of correction in the book as well. There's the difference being there. We had noted 35 in the public safety department, but that was just simply an error. It is 70 employees. You'll note that some of the departments have different staffing levels, but our total remains the same. It remains at 70 employees across the city. That is a couple of different reasons. That's retirees and dependence upon part-time workers to fill some of the positions that we've lost through attrition and through retirement. So I say you'll note some differences, but the bottom number still remains the same.
General fund contractual services, 2019, $995,527. This is a decrease of $159,223 from FY18. Items that are in contractual services are consultant fees, our audit fees, legal services, actuarial services, inspections in the building department, library co-op, assessing services, and wayfinding.
And just for recollection purposes, the wayfinding is the joint project with the Downtown Development Authority to replace the city's signage that tells you kind of where to go to downtown, city offices, and things like that. So some of those will be within the DDA district, some of them will be around the city at large.
On to the fun stuff. General fund capital outlay, 2019, $2,068,185. Our major projects in that area are our aerial ladder fire truck and the expansion of the fire hall to accommodate the aerial ladder fire truck. Also looking to add 3 police vehicles for $126,000 and additional DPW equipment for $385,000. The primary drivers there are the dump truck with a plow and spreader, new mower, a fuel management system with DPW yard, and security camera upgrades. I want to speak a little bit to that fuel management system. I think that's pretty neat.
Sure. Right now, we actually have a literal key that all parties that share with our fuel management system utilize. It's physical key. It's actually then the gas and fuel usage is calculated in-house by Janice over in our Department of Public Works. Our fuel management system that we're proposing is an electronic one. It's automated, so individual users will have a unique code. And so whether you're utilizing it on behalf of City of Berkley, City of Huntington Woods, or Berkeley Schools, it's tabulated properly, you're coded as such, and then it's automatically calculated. So not only can we be more efficient in the way that we calculate it, but it's one of the areas where we're shifting the administrative burden to more of an automated system. So we're happy about that, and then it works in conjunction with an access management system, so new fencing, new gates, things like that, so we can make sure that the usages match with those that are seeking entry into the yard. So it gives us 2 methods for controlling those costs. We haven't had, I want to be clear, it's been many, many, many years since we've had any issues with not being able to account for fuel usage, but we want to make sure that we have a system in place that not only makes our administrative burden much easier, but also helps us accurately track who's using our fuel and when. So we're excited about, as excited as one can be about a fuel management system. We're excited about this. I think this is a good increase.
Okay, in 2020, we go down a little bit in capital outlay, down 73,384. Major projects there, remodel and renovate dispatch here in the public safety office. New animal control truck and equipment, $50,500. Replace car camera systems for public safety officers for $70,000. 2 new patrol cars for $89,000. DPW pickup truck with a plow and a spreader for $45,000. Add some mowers for $40,000. And Matt's favorite, an anti-ice systems swap mower for $25,000.
John called it my favorite because, as you recall from our conversations at one of the previous council meetings, instead of buying a unique truck for almost every purpose that we have, we are utilizing a swap loader vehicle that is like basically taking the back end of a truck off and just putting on whatever you need for that day, but you don't have to buy a new truck for it. You just buy literally the attachment that's appropriate for whatever function it's serving that day. So the potential for saving on equipment purchases over the next several years is very high, and we're excited about that, and credit goes to Derek and his team on that for finding a better way forward.
General fund department expenditures, looking at public safety is a very large part of it, $6.2 million. City Hall, $2.3 million. Public Works for $1.2 million. Retirees, $1.6 million. Library, $700,000, and our transfers out of $366,000.
Keep in mind, our public safety department works 3 times as long as we do, having 24-hour shifts. So the fact that they're not 3 times any other budget is, I think, impressive in and of itself. And the public safety model continues to yield fantastic results at an appropriate, at a reasonable cost for the city of Berkeley. So I'm very happy to be in that model.
General fund balances. Industry standards usually say we should be 10 to 20% funded. I have always gone to the 20% myself. The state of Michigan fiscal distress indicator is if your fund balance is at 13% or less. We are not near those numbers. Our general fund balance in 2015-16 is $4.3 million. 18-19, budgeted for $5.4 million, and 2019 will take a slight dip to 5.468. Percentage-wise, 2015, 45%, 51% 16-17, projected for 55% this year. Budgeted for next year, 44%, and then projected 19-20, 47%. These are healthy general fund balances.
I just recall our conversation from last year on the appropriate municipal fund balance. Well, one of the reasons why we're proposing to you interfund loan against the water and sewer department is to preserve the general fund balance. 20%, as indicated there, is good best practice, but you also have to take into consideration the size of the community and what you might have to be repairing or fixing in an emergency situation. Keeping $5.4 million on hand on the general fund, I think is appropriate. I have attempted to avoid to dip any more than that because if we have to fix something, if something like one of our facilities, one of our most facilities would be your main cost driver, you want to have enough cash on hand to be able to address those issues. So risk tolerance, that's the reason why it's listed there at the top. 20% obviously would be far lower, and as we've been discussing ever since P 202 became law at the end of last year, if the state were to alter some of the parameters associated with tolerable level at OPEB, a tolerable OPEB ratio or a tolerable pension funding ratio, and we need to make large investments into that fund, we will be doing it from the general fund's fund balance, which would bring us likely a lot closer to that 20% mark, which again we have attempted to avoid in each budget year thus far. So as we get into our conversation a little bit on the merits of an interfund loan with the water and sewer department, general fund balance, and not just the percentage but also the actual dollar amount, it was one of the big drivers in proposing this to City Council.
City Council, City Manager, City Attorney. City Council expenditures are consistent with the prior years. Relatively flat. City Manager increased 2 full-time staff from 3.
Yes. So 3 to 2 full-time and part-time.
Remaining expenditures within the department are consistent with prior years. City Attorney, Labor Attorney, expect $25,000 for union negotiations beginning in January of 2019. Our monthly retainer for our City Attorney is $5,300 a month. City Hall, Department 265, contractual service, architectural fees for city buildings if needed. This is somewhat contingent on the millages and the bond proposals as to how much we'll be spending in architectural fees. Wayfinding, as we've stated earlier, is a joint project with DDA. City Hall's portion, $52,500. Liability insurance for City Hall moved 100% to departments versus spread across all City Hall departments. Insurance costs in City Hall, public safety, library, parks and rec, public works, and water and sewer.
So that's 100% housed in this budget now instead of piecemealing it out to each department.
Our loss expense is expected to be about $20,000. Building maintenance for about $14,000, estimate based on previous year's costs. Our office equipment rental is $8,500 for a postage machine and copier. Community promotions. City can levy up to $50,000 annually for community promotion. We have citywide memberships in Clinton River Watershed, and Michigan Municipal League, WA3, SEMCOG, and NLC for $14,694.
I will pause a moment to note that we should update this to reflect our participation in ProTech as well. It's a citywide organization that helps protect the right-of-ways against the oncoming advance of the telecommunications industry. So it's a very fruitful organization to be a part of. They're doing very good work. We'd like to continue the participation in that with that organization.
Contractual services, $53,000 for primarily cable production, and Berkley Buzz Magazine, $13,500 a year. Public Safety Administration, slight increase over prior years. It wasn't enough to make a percentage change. We have some increase in insurance costs. Our dispatch had a slight decrease, about $1,700. We have a retirement saving, the MERS closed plan, fixed rate. We have a decrease in E911 maintenance costs due to the new 911 system put in service in 2017. There are no fees for the first 5 years. Animal control is consistent with the prior years.
Both dispatch and animal control, though, do anticipate in the next fiscal year 1920, to have increases due to the renovation of the dispatch area, as well as animal control. The vehicle that we utilize for animal control is about at the end of its useful life, and we'll be purchasing another vehicle. We budgeted $50,000 for the vehicle itself, as well as the accessories that will allow the officer to do the job. So that's not reflected this year, but you will see that in the budget conversations next year.
Graph showing the public safety expenditures for administration, dispatch, and animal control. Notice we peaked in about 2017 projected, and we were looking to drop in 2018 and a slight increase in 2019. Public safety operations, as you can see, we're moving up slightly. Or we're moving up from 2000 projected 18 to our 19 budgeted recommendation, and then back down again in 2020.
And that is capital. So you see that.
Public safety increased 34% from the prior year. We have 1 chief, 3 lieutenants, 6 sergeants, and 19 public safety officers. Our health, disability, life, and optical, I think I've got that acronym correct. $58,121, or a 9.9% increase. And retirement costs are up 4%, $37,576.
You'll see some variability in the HDLO based on the number of employees, because there are 4 categories in the H portion, the health insurance, family, or primary plus 1, then, single, family, and single plus 1. So that is tailored to the individual employee themselves. So you'll see it move differently depending on how that depending on how that department's utilizing it.
Public safety operations, vehicle and fire maintenance, higher than 16 and 17 due to the aging of the vehicles, and with the aging of the vehicles, you usually have higher maintenance costs. Building improvements, I believe it's this room, is scheduled for $27,450 EOC improvements. We're looking for an extension of exhaust systems from the fire hall for $10,000, and also the addition on the fire hall to accommodate the new ladder truck for $275,000.
I know that Chief Kane will speak to this in a little bit, but I just want to note that the investment in this room, because of its sort of trifold purpose, it's not only a conference room for city business, it's also our emergency operations center should the need arise. And the third leg of that stool would be a training facility. So we could host and hopefully benefit financially from utilizing this for a regional training area. Even if we don't get a direct revenue benefit from that, whatever we're hosting will likely would offer us comp training opportunities for being the host community on that. So we're hoping to have a solid ROI, that is the return on that investment here, as this building could just blossom into the number of uses that we do for this. So we're excited to make those, I think, very appropriate upgrades in this building. We'll be taking out the pink walls, the pot marks on the drywall, and make this an appropriate training area.
Public safety retirement system, property taxes is $774,000, which make up 43% of the revenue. Investment earnings were $1.2 million, or 57% of the revenue. Salary and fringe benefits for 47 retirees, $1.8 million. Contractual services, which is the investment advisory fees, investment manager fees, audit service, and annual actuarial valuation, costs of $158,955. Library. Expect to spend $723,072. Salary and fringes, decreased FTE through staff retirements, building improvements, public copy machine with bill and coin, $7,500, and mobile printing of $3,000.
Library director is here to go into more details.
Communications. Total budget, $122,119, or a slight increase of 3.5% over prior year. One of the major upgrades is going to be the upgrade in the council chambers and camera, and that's scheduled towards the end of the calendar year, pending what's going to happen with our millage and bond proposals as to when and how we're going to install those cameras. And they are, I understand it, mobile.
At least transferable if the location of the council chamber shifts to a separate part of the building.
Our IT budget, $176,826. We do a major replacement of the computers, 50% this year for $40,000 and 50% next year for $40,000.
That replacement number includes accessories, monitors, keyboards, stands. It is, essentially, it's our worst case scenario. But you'll see in the next slide how we're going to keep those costs as low as possible. But we do anticipate half the office computers being replaced in this budget year, half the office computers being replaced in fiscal year 1920.
Also looking at a new phone system for $50,000 to replace the existing one. Some of the...
Yeah, I actually like to chance to pause here and go through these items because I want to talk a little bit about how the work that Stan is doing through information technology is how it's really it's rendering fruit. Stan has worked tirelessly on a lot of these projects, and while things may seem minor, they are really adding up to cost savings for the city. One of the things that he implemented was expanding toner and ink purchasing down up to 3 vendors for better pricing and lower the cost to about $2,000 annually. That's just on ink and toner. One of the ways that he did that, and it seems like a small thing, but it's, again, like I said, it's yielded real cost savings and operational efficiencies. Stan has limited how the number of printers that each office buys to a certain number of models. Those number of models then carry the same toner cartridge. And so, whereas before we had to keep lots of toner on hand, just in case, a printer broke down that used some unique type. Now we've got it all the way down to basically one. We need to keep one on the shelf. That one feeds whichever runs out, and then we buy one more. So we don't have to keep near the inventory. We don't need to expend near the amount of money for that as we do in years past. And the equipment purchases are now checked against 6 purchasing cooperatives, 6 major online vendors for an average savings of 10 to 25%. And this process has been automated to the point that even the books you have in front of you, the binders themselves, the tabs, all went through a vendor check to see who had the best price on that. And it's just minutes it takes for him to do this. Instead of pulling out physical books, comparing one-to-one, he essentially, it's like an online travel site. He's able to compare prices across the board, purchase outright. So this 10 to 25% on things even down to the tabs that separate the department pages here. It's fantastic work that he's done. The new phone system at $50,000, that price was managed, that price came way down because of the completion of a telecommunications audit that Stan spearheaded and brought through to its completion this year. He found a number of lines were either redundant, no longer used, don't go anywhere, don't service any particular department, but over successive agreements upon successive agreements were just sort of remained in place. So now we were able to right-size the phone system, and we were able to preemptively take care of a lot of the installation costs that would have been associated with muddling through, finding a lot of lines that served absolutely no purpose. Not to mention the fact that we're seeing $5,000 or so decrease in our phone bills annually. And so in the course of about 10 years, this telecommunications audit will not only pay for the cost of the audit itself, but also the new phone system. Again, I want to take a moment to really, there's one guy. This is all one guy that's doing this. I don't know if he's still in the room or not, but just
Definitely the room for this.
yeah, just a small taste of how a lot of little things add up to operational efficiencies and monetary efficiencies for what we're doing. Speaking of the efficiencies, Mystic scheduling, this has become a lot of work, as you can imagine. Mystic has gone to an online automated system, and so Stan worked with the Department of Public Works crew, and he actually put a board up, and I was sort of comparing it to the flight departure board you see at the airport. So they can track in real time how these things are being addressed, and Sean, our Public Works foreman, can build his crews off of seeing real-time progress on what they've done. And then Stan also facilitated a joint project between public safety and the school district that allowed Berkley Public Safety to monitor Berkley schools if the need should arise. And so they both public safety and the school district thought, hey, this is a great idea. And our Berkeley's own information technology coordinator was the one that actually made the two ends meet. And so not only is this an operational efficiency, but it's extending our ability to keep students safe and the faculty at our school safe as well. So Stan's a one-man efficiency machine. So we take a moment to give him some kudos, because the work that he's doing, you're going to see our operational cost decrease and continue to decrease as he finds more things to save money on. So thank you for allowing me to digress for just a moment.
MERS, PSO retirement and transfers out. Continue to see retirement health care savings due to the Medicare Advantage Plan effect from 3/2017. We're not planning any OPEB contributions for FY 18 or 19.
It's additional.
Excuse me, additional.
Additional.
Sorry, additional. Thank you.
So we'll continue to operate as a pay-as-you-go system. Our monthly premiums will be satisfied, but as was our tradition of just a few years ago, we made a lump sum payment to manage those costs. During the fiscal year, we have not been able to budget for those items since then. And once we get a clear indication of where the state wants to go, we can look at a policy to commit some percentage of the remaining fund balance at the end of the year to those costs. But again, I want to wait and see where the legislature's focus ends up being, likely after the election in the lame duck season.
The transfers out, recreation revolving fund. Changes in rec revolving fund will require sustained transfers moving forward. The reason for that is the rec fund used to be in the general. Now it's its own standalone with its own level of visibility. The administrative part of that cost, the capital part of that cost, though, is part of what's the city's responsibility. Programs that are run by the rec department are fairly self-funding. They don't require additional contributions by the city in order to do those programs. But to maintain a ball field, a park, to pay for the admin people, that comes out of the city and will require a continuing contribution by the city to support those activities.
Right. So if you look in the book, you'll see that there is no general fund budget for recreation. Rest assured, we have not ended that any of that department at all. It's just now completely housed in rec revolving for now the second year. To John's point, because general fund was always a portion of the recreation department's funding, we will continue that and likely have to increase it through general fund transfer to the rec revolving as we move forward. Park equipment, the physical land itself, the equipment, all of it, it needs to be funded. It is reaching its useful life, as many of our facilities and equipment are throughout the community. And so we'll probably likely have a conversation throughout the course of this year and certainly into the 1920 fiscal year about how to adequately fund the non-facility portions of it. Our programs remain self-sufficient. It's the capital items that will require heavier investment.
For our downtown development authority, tax revenues at 2 mills, and this goes back to when that was started. We capped at $39,735. Property tax capture is estimated at $193,756. Our state reimbursement is $26,750. Contributions and donations make up $29,650. Our expenditures, some of the larger ones are placemaking, flower baskets and public art for $35,000, marketing analysis for $50,000, facade grant incentive program for $25,000, streetscape improvements of $77,500, and then our favorite, our sharing for wayfinding DDA portion is $30,000.
And just for clarification on the tax revenue, that is, the DDA is a defined district. The properties within that district are subject to the taxable, the DDA's millage, which started at 2 mills but has been driven down through Headley over the years. So that is one portion of the DDA's revenue. The other portion is called tax increment financing, or TIF. There is a baseline year established along with the district, and as the values have increased within that district, the city is basically guaranteed the revenue from the base year. Anything above that then goes to fund the works of the DDA itself. The intent is to reinvest that, as you see they are doing. You reinvest that into the physical built environment as well as programs to help the business. So it's basically businesses funding improvements to the businesses. It's not the resident at large is not taxed for the DDA revenue.
As you can see on our next screen, our expenditures are starting to increase and start peaking in 2018-19. Excuse me, and decline in 2019-20. Fund balance kind of follows the same thing. It goes up and then it starts to decline and then recovers a little in 19-20, but still a reasonable amount of fund balance.
And one of the reasons why the fund balance has taken the path that it has is the DDA began an aggressive investment into the district starting in 16-17, and instead of carrying such a hefty fund balance, they've decided to actually put that in the physical built environment, as well as several different services designed to positively impact our business clientele. So you'll see they've come down to what they feel is an appropriate fund balance for what they need at just over $100,000. And the plan moving forward is to build back some of that fund balance in order to make other substantial investments into their district. So very happy with the work that they're doing so far. So.
Slide. Court building fund for capital projects, no transfers out to the general fund for architectural costs for this year. Sidewalk fund accounts for special assessment levies. Construction costs related to citywide sidewalk program, engineering costs charged to major local streets.
So in 1920, we do anticipate that fund to become more active as we begin our sidewalk program, but the work that we've done thus far and into next year is not going to affect it just yet. So that takes us to our original. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, member of council.
Very much.
Any questions, comments on the presentation before we move into budgets? Seeing none, Ms. Bowden, could you please read item number 2 on tonight's agenda?
Budget work session, matter of discussion of the proposed 2018-2019 City of Berkeley budget for City Council, City Manager, City Attorney, City Hall, Public Safety, Community Promotions, Library, Communications, Information Technology, Downtown Development Authority, Capital Project Funds, and Public Safety Retirement System.
Is there a motion to start the budget work session? So moved. Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, with support from Councilman Dean. We need to call the roll for this? Sure.
Sure. Gavin?
Yes.
Kennan?
Yes.
Stegman? Baker?
Yes.
Blanchard?
Yes.
Dean? And Turbeck.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Manager? Yes, sir. Finance Director.
Sir.
You guys are on.
All right.
Okay.
So, moving first into our city council expenditures, beginning on page 23 of your book. You'll see that this item remains relatively unchanged from budget numbers of the past, with the no raises for the city council projected. I apologize. As Mayor Pro Tem said, these are charter amounts, so they're unchanged from the original passage of the charter going way back. So contractual services remains relatively the same moving across the board, meeting and conferences are relatively unchanged. You'll see, as always, we project a number, and then for opportunities for conferences and developments, and sometimes members are able to take advantage of those, sometimes they're not. We'd love to continue to have the participation that we've seen from this council thus far, having 7 members at the Michigan Municipal League Conference was phenomenal, and we hope to see that each time. So that is the kind of things that are included in your meetings and conferences here. Liability insurance, as I said, is now fully captured in the City Hall. And so that brings us to a total of $16,000, which again is consistent with what we've had in years past.
Excuse me, is there anybody in the audience that have a copy of
We have I don't know if we have hard copies available. I know when we put it online. Well, there you go. See, neighbors helping neighbors, love it. Next item, let's see, we'll move right into the city manager's budget. You will see there's a decrease there in full-time, reflected in full-time employees. Going back a little bit, you'll see where full-time employees is now a catch-all for all department staff, the full-time level. So, whereas previously we broke out the individual positions for clarity purposes, we rolled it into all full-time employees. You see no significant changes. Otherwise, costs remain pretty standard on the fringes and salaries. So going down, I do want to go ahead on the memberships and dues. You'll see throughout the next 3 items, ICMA, the acronym ICMA appears several times. The city has a retirement system with ICMA called ICMA RC. We do have we budget for the membership within ICMA, and then we budget for ICMA conferences. So one of the clarifications we can make moving forward would be to denote the retirement system from the membership itself from the conference expenditures. So we'll note that accordingly as we go forward. Membership and dues, $3,009, and you'll see how that breaks out. Both the ICMA is mentioned, MME is one of those acronyms, that is Michigan Municipal Executives, that is the city manager's professional organization. Those are standing items that we have funded each year. Medical expenses remains relatively flat. Telephones, you'll see that number go down from, especially from the 15-16, that's the fruit of our telecommunications audit. Memberships and conferences, it looks at 0, but we moved that down to professional development at the start of last year. And then advertising for vacancies and positions and such as that. So rolling down to $5,811, which you'll see how that is reflected as much smaller than the years past. So we continue to tighten our belt and be as fiscally responsible as possible. Professional development, budget this year is $7,450. You see a decrease next year as perhaps some of the conferences will not be as well utilized. I know based on the early agendas and the location of the next ICMA conference, I don't plan to attend that. I will be staying mostly in-state conferences. I think it's a better use and it's more specific to the issues that are faced by Michigan municipal managers. You'll see the breakdown in the footnotes on the professional development and some of the costs. And again, ICMA in this situation is the ICMA conference. Capital outlays, office equipment, we don't have any items budgeted for that. There's no plans or replacements there. Bringing the total for this particular department to $297,695.
Just one quick second. Since we do have 3 new council members who have not been through the process before, I want to take that quick second. So as we're going through these pages, these items, do you have any questions, comments? Get my attention, make sure we'll recognize you through the chair, and we'll be able to direct any questions to city manager, finance director, or whatever department head is up at the time. So don't be shy. A lot of these numbers are repetitive, and we've seen them year after year, but there are some changes, and I want to make sure that everybody feels like they have an opportunity when anything comes up to just make sure they get a hold of me, put their hand up, and I'll make sure that we address any of those concerns.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Moving now to, we're going to jump to the city attorney, which is actually page 34 in your book. As noted in the previous presentation, we do anticipate an increase in the labor services. We do intend to make more use of our labor attorney than we normally would year to year. If you recall, our public safety union agreed to a 12-month extension, whereas we would be utilizing labor to move through the contract process now. We actually were able to, we're going to start that in January 2019 in anticipation of a new contract being signed at or before June 30th of 2019. Likewise, we've been working with our AFSCME bargaining unit, which houses our Department of Public Works personnel. We made a proposal with them for a 12-month extension as well. We're waiting to get the feedback of the unit, but likewise, we'll ideally be bargaining with both POLC and AFSCME starting at the first of the calendar year. And in doing so with the services of Schiffman Law, which is has been our labor attorney for several years now and knows the city very well. No anticipated changes. Sorry.
Yeah, so with the labor negotiations coming up, we have the budget's flat for the labor services. Is that going to cover the cost of the negotiations?
Yes, yeah. We worked with our labor attorney's office on anticipating what some of those costs would be, and that's the feedback we got from them. City attorney has only a very small increase from 63.6 to 66.6. We do utilize those services based on a monthly retainer, no matter how many times we call them. Then general liability, legal services, we continue to fund we fund that line item should the need arise. But as I say, you see, looking back, we have not typically had to pull from that account. Generally speaking, the contractual services from projected activity went from 91.10 to 93.6, and it remains flat into the next fiscal year. finally, we'll do the city hall budgets, starting on page 37. Office supplies, we strive to keep this number as low as possible. As noted, this is some of the areas where information technologies work will yield fruits. We'll see this number hopefully either remain steady or start to decrease as we move forward. Postage remains a constant item, remains flat. We don't anticipate any increases there. And maintenance supplies likewise is increased only. We had small increases each year, but likewise, we hope not to utilize a lot of maintenance supplies. But we attempt to remain conservative in our projections. Contractual services, item of note on this would be the $95,000 referenced in the finance director's presentation. That is items that will only be incurred based on November's vote. So if there is no need to move forward with architectural or construction renderings for any of the city's facilities, that is an item that will not be expended.
Councilman Hamm?
Yeah, so on that, I think this is the only thing I've identified in the budget that we have in here that is contingent upon the passage of the millage bond proposals. So why, I think it would make more sense if we increase the budget, do a budget amendment if it's passed instead of putting this in here now. Is there some reason to do it this way?
The thought process behind pre-funding it would be as we go through our informational meetings and our focus groups and get more feedback from the community at large. If there are some changes that they would like to see to the plans as presented, we'd be able to pull from this account. But it could be reduced to a number more appropriate. So there's pre-funding in there so we don't run a deficit, but unless we see an affirmative vote in November, I don't see us utilizing the full $95,000. So to your point, we could go forward, we could reduce this and then make a budget amendment pending the results of the November election. I know that Darshell did reach out to the architectural firm to discuss what's, based on the feedback that we had gotten from our open house specific to City Hall, what making some of the corrections or some of the updates suggested by the audience there would cost. And I think we discussed a figure of about $25,000 from the architectural firms and so an amount that also reflects Stantec's continued work on refining the plans and concepts for the proposed recreation center would also be pulled from that account as well. Like I said, we intend to utilize far less of this on the discussional purposes and most of it after, if the voters see fit.
How does council feel about that? Anybody? Any strong feelings?
I think my only feeling is that there's somewhere else in the budget you have to cut that you could have used this money there, and it would have been, if we're not using the full $95,000, and it makes sense for you to pull it into somewhere else. That's the but leaving $95,000 here, I don't have a concern with if there's nowhere else you need it.
But I think isn't that 95,000 covered by a transfer from the court building fund?
Not in 18-19. There was a transfer in to cover costs associated with that project in 17-18. There's no, I don't believe there's a proposed transfer in from the court fund to cover it in 18-19. But they could be corrected if the need arises. But no, I believe that amount could be reduced, and then, like I said, an amendment to be passed thereafter. With, as Lori said, with a transfer coming from the court building fund, which does carry a fund balance of about $700,000 or so.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm fine with the 95, and I'm wondering at some point if we had a broader conversation around the fund balance at large, right? We hinted at it in the presentation, and there was some. This is obviously based around the assumptions that went into those figures, and so before getting into like the smaller amounts here, I'm wondering if at some point, either tonight or tomorrow, if there's an opportunity to have a broader dialogue around where are we at as a council on the fund balance and things like that. And then we can cycle back to see if there are other spots that might make sense to put another couple of little dollars here and there, based on the broader conversation.
Sure. We're going to make that part of tomorrow night's discussion, absolutely. Thank you. We have visuals on actually all the funds. We can take a look at that for city council. Thank you, sir.
Any additional? Well, let's, just for our purposes here, let's leave that 95 here. If we do come across some areas and we'll look at maybe increasing it, then we know we've got that in our back pocket.
Okay. Moving forward, as John discussed earlier, there's funding across the next 2 budget years for wayfinding signage implementation. Again, you'll see the telephones, that number decreasing in each of the departments. Instead of showing up in a single instead of just showing up as a lump sum in information technology, that is a portion according to the departments that with the phone lines. Contractual services, materials and supplies, and all that feeds into, contractual services. You'll see that number does increase based on the 95,000, but otherwise it's been fairly consistent or below on the individual line items ordered and that feed into them. So, insurance, you'll see, as I mentioned earlier, that is now 100% housed here in the city hall budget, and that's where it appears. So that looks like a substantial increase over 2 years ago, but that has formerly been shown across several different places and is now a lump sum total. Our utilities, that's based on a 3-year average. As you can imagine, that it's very contingent upon the intensities of our winters and summers, heating and cooling the building.
Mr. Baumgarten, I'm just curious as to the insurance that we have as a city, not only health benefits, but other insurances. Does that go out to bid on a regular basis, or I'm just curious as to that process?
Sure. We've been with the pool for years. I'm not sure the last time it has gone out to bid. Michigan Municipal League has a property and liability pool that we're members of. Because of our continued membership, we see a dividend that comes into it.
Sure.
And so one of the problems that we run into with going out to bid is if we were to leave in any year, we would not see the dividend come back to us. So it really gives an advantage to staying with the pool.
Sure.
We've had some hiccups with them this year, certainly with their response to those that submitted flood claims. We had a major issue both in privacy, in timeline, and in general tone of the way that they address our residents who had issues. We've discussed this with them at length. Quite frankly, demanded an apology from them to our residents. But for the most part, that item aside, we've been happy with the pool. They are competitive on the field and sort of put themselves across the finish line by the dividend portion of it. So we can go out to bid. Unlikely that we would change based on the benefits that we see from the property liability pool, but I can find out when our term runs through, and we can certainly examine going out to bid and making sure that we know for sure that our assumptions are correct.
Thank you. I just was curious about the process, but it makes sense, and that's how we came to be with Meadowbrook is through MML.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick question as a follow-up to that. Do you know how many people are part of the pool? Or not people, I'm sorry, entities that are on
I'm not sure. I can find out. So this is for, I know you previously asked about when we come to the end of the contract, and I apologize I haven't got that information back to you.
Thank you.
The bottom line City Hall appropriations total is $327,210. You'll see in looking at years past, this number has fluctuated a little bit based on the work that we've done, but this year is a high water mark, mostly driven by increasing contractual services. And FY 1920, as the total budget is expected to be somewhere around about 200,000 or so. We have 198,000 budgeted here. So you'll see it comes back down to what you'll see as the historical average. That is the items I have for the City Hall, City Council, City Manager, and City Attorney's Office. The next item would be Public Safety Departments. On your table, good deal. That begins on page 41 of your book.
Tennis, you want to come up here? Have a seat.
Would you like this one?
Yeah.
Thank you,
This was an interesting process this year, as you know, that no one's worked on the Public Safety Department budget is here that worked on in the past. So it took us quite a bit of time and quite a bit of effort. I'm familiar with budgeting. This is a little bit different than I'm used to, so I thank Lieutenant Governick, Lieutenant Miller, and Lieutenant Hadfield for helping me out a lot, along with finance and City Hall staff. So if you have any questions, just feel free. Going through administration, we have full-time employees in administration. It's only myself and the administrative assistant that is, we have a new administrative assistant starting next week. Overtime is just for the administrative assistant. Did you want me to go line by line, or?
Go,
what's the best way to do it?
You're doing a
Okay.
good job. If we see something we want to catch, we'll let
Okay.
you know. Thanks, Sean.
FICA, HDLO, retirement, workers' comp. Just go over that because I need, unless somebody else wants to explain this. Contractual services, for memberships, we have, for the administrative assistant, it's Lorma, Records Management Association, Oakland County Police Chiefs for myself, Southeast Michigan Police Chief for myself, Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police for myself, IACP for myself, and then Southeast Fire Chiefs for a total of $410 a year. We have no medical expenses projected for next year. There's one conference requesting budgeting for this year. That's the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police Winter Conference, which is in February. And then we did a couple minor things, the sheriff for records and some minor office equipment.
Councilor Blanchard.
I just wanted to make a comment. Chief and I talked earlier, and there was some discussion about other conferences, and there's two that I think that probably should be added in the future, and that's the North American Active Assailant Conference and the Emergency Management Conference, State Management Conference, which we should have people at. We did this year by taking it out of the training funds, but we may want to add that as a line item in the future. Thank you.
And to explain a little bit, I actually attended the Great Lakes Homeland Security Conference in Grand Rapids last week, and I actually went through a grant through the Oakland County Homeland Security, so it didn't cost the city anything other than my time. And hopefully that'll continue, but we can't count on that, so we will, and we will hopefully have some money in professional development, but we do have an appearance at that. I'm also scheduled to attend training in Emmitsburg, Maryland, also in next month. And again, free to the city, won't cost the city any money through my association with Homeland Security in Oakland County. And then going over to dispatchers, as far as salary goes, just a projected 2% increases. We had a position open for actually just before I got here for several months, so we have a little bit. We had a dispatcher training. We had some staffing issues where we had to fill positions with public safety officers. So that made a little bit of difference here. We did hire a part-time employee this year, and that's the projection there. Overtime's up a little bit because of that vacancy this year, but we're projecting it will go down a little bit the next couple of years. Skip down to uniforms. For the most part, that's contractual cleaning allowance, and program supplies are just miscellaneous supplies. Contractual expenses are for physical examinations. Take that back. That's psychological evaluations, right? Lori, which one?
The medical expenses?
Yes. Yeah, that's okay.
That's psychological.
And as Matt explained, the 911 equipment maintenance, is there will be no charge for that for the next several years because it is new equipment. There is a new charge for office equipment maintenance, and that is the DSS recording system. It's the recording system that records all of our phone lines, or selected phone lines, and our radio talk routes. Professional development is mandatory, state mandated training for our PSAs and for our dispatch trained public safety officers. And then we are hoping to do a renovation to the communications area next year. That would have to go to our RFP. We're kind of just ballparking that for now, for lack of a better term.
Can I get some clarification on that amount? Because, you know, two different numbers here. I have 75,000 for the amount and then 100,000 in the footnote for building improvements for the dispatch. And then I looked at the capital, and in the capital project, it's 100,000.
Yeah, I thought it was 100,000.
Yeah, so I think you had 75 in your presentation,
Yes.
but it's been corrected to 100,000.
That's for next
budget.
fiscal.
So just so you get, I wanted to double check with
Yes,
you
thank
before
you.
I said it, but I thought it was 100,000.
It will definitely have a more firm number on that when it comes to this time next year. We'll go to RFP, and hopefully it'll be less than that, but. Any questions on dispatch? For animal control, we have one full-time animal control officer who's a PSA. He's also dispatch trained, and also is trained to be a firefighter trained also, which has helped us out quite a bit during the day when he's working for additional manpower at fire scenes. The uniforms is the contractual cleaning allowance. Also, we are in the process, or we'd like to purchase him a ballistic vest and a taser for protection from animals. Fuel and oil, I looked today, we're pretty much online for $1,500. He does have a pretty good relationship with a local cremation facility where we did budget for animal disposal, but we're hoping we don't have to pay that. We just can't count on that. It's kind of a accommodation they're making for us because of his relationship with them. And then we have a little bit of money for vehicle maintenance and for professional development and for things such as dog food and animal food. So that's pretty consistent over past years. And as you know, in the revenue section, it'll be for your body next week for the contract with Royal Oak, and it'll be going before Royal Oak City Council next week also. We have a 6% increase from last year to this year, and then 3% future increases with that too. So that will more than pay his salary, benefits, everything, but most of the base coming from Royal Oak.
Councilman Lee?
Excuse me, what type of professional development does the animal control officer take part in?
Some of it is, well, we do in-house taser training. There's also training put on by the Humane Society. We try to, from my time at Farmington Hills, I actually still get a lot of training notifications, so we get a lot of free training, so we try to make it free. But I think as a department, we need to be big into training and professional development, so anything we think that can help us, we will do that. So it basically generally deals with animal law and caring for animals.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And then going into public safety operations, as far as the full-time employees go, that's again the 2% increase, and keep going down. Overtime, historically, we've noticed that overtime is budgeted. It seems to be running over every year quite a bit, so we're trying to take a more realistic approach to the budgeting. We're projecting about $150,000 this year. Part of that is because we had an officer that was on either off or on light duty for a big period of the year that we had to cover. We also had to cover shortages in communications. We also have several events, including this week, where we have to detail officers on overtime because of our minimum staffing that we have to do. I mean, we have to keep the citizens safe. So that's the bulk of that. So we are hoping that that number will be a pretty hard number after this year. Quite honestly, I'm a little bit worried at the end of this year, still after looking at it this morning, with some of the big events coming, but we do everything we can to keep the overtime to a minimum. Let's see, and I'll keep going down if there's any questions. Down to office supplies. That's a pretty standard number. That includes your standard office supplies and some of the items we need to function, such as printer paper for the in-car printers. The ammunition's pretty consistent with past years, both in training and duty ammunition. Chemical munition, same thing. We budgeted about $250 for that. The uniform cleaning and purchasing, a big part of that is the contractual cleaning allowance. We also have 8 body armor protection to be replaced this year. Those are on a 5-year cycle. We're due for 8 of those this year, and we try to rotate those so we're not taking a big hit. And we also do submit for the Office of BGA or BVP, Bulletproof Vest Partnership, to be reimbursed for half of the cost. So we do recoup some of that money based upon available funding. And then we're still replacing uniforms. Our projection for next year is our uniform will go down quite a bit. There were quite a few officers here that only had 1 or 2 sets of uniforms. That just doesn't work. You need to have more, so we're working on trying to get up to speed there. That I think will flatten out and be a little bit less after that. Fire gear, kind of the same thing. As you recall, you approved a contract with Phoenix Public Safety where we can we're purchasing it's a first time uniforms. First one back up uniforms for the first time ever. We went out to bid to get a better price, so we're not paying retail. For the fire equipment, we also got our best price from the same company. So we have 12 sets this year. Six sets this year. There's once again there's an expiration on the equipment, so we're in the process of replacing that. We did have a new hire this year too that we had to buy equipment for. Fuel and oil is pretty consistent. The prisoner board is going up a little bit due to us housing Lathrop Village prisoners, but the fee we charge them will more than make up for it. Lives for Kids and Fire Open House, that is our funds that we bring in to develop outings, so that money comes in and comes out. It's through the public safety golf outing, which is the next line. A couple miscellaneous accounts there, which I talked to Councilmember Blanchard earlier today. In my mind, it'd be nice to condense some of those because we have 2 or 3 different equipment lines, and after looking at what we've been taking, we're just kind of grabbing one of the 3. So that's one of those there. Memberships. This is kind of standard from previous years. We have the Southeast Oakland SWAT team, the Mutual Alarm Box System, OPTAC, investigative database for conducting investigations, memberships in the Oakland County Chiefs of Police, I know it's not politically correct, but it's still called the Firemen's Association. I'm not really sure why they don't change their name, but I just want to let you know I'm just quoting. The Oakland County Fire Investigators Association, the International Fire Investigators Association, the National Fire Protection Association, and that's the manuals from NFPA, and a membership to that organization also. Data processing is a pretty big line. That includes our membership to Clemis, which is pretty much all-inclusive of our technology systems, our booking, our records management, our EMS management, our fire management is now part of that system, our citations. So it's pretty much most of the technology we use in the building comes out of that account. Leads Online is a pawn database that has really helped us a lot. Where we can run items and see who's pawning those. Blood draws, that's kind of that's when we have to do search warrants. We usually will have either Alliance come out to the station or we'll take them to Beaumont, and that's what that expense is. Radio maintenance, we're in the process of replacing, I should say Clemis is in the process of replacing our radio system for the entire county. So we're kind of end of life of the system we have now. That's paying for repairs. There's a couple other counties that deal with radio maintenance also. But right now, we're just trying to, we anticipate probably the next 2 years of completely replacing our radio system, system-wide, which is all of Oakland County. Vehicle insurance and liability insurance, pretty standard. Utilities are pretty flat. Building maintenance is, most of that is repairs to the building. We've had a few unexpected issues with the building. We have a couple we're dealing with right now to the tune of about $15,000 that we're in the process of looking at. So that's kind of where we go with that. Vehicle maintenance, as it was noted earlier, especially our unmarked cars, we have several with over 100,000 miles, and even a couple cars that don't have so many miles with, that's one car is like 15 years old. So we have related expenses for that, and our plan is to slowly in the future rotate those out, so hopefully we could be more fiscally responsible with that. Fire truck maintenance includes hose testing, tires, anything else for you that I'm missing?
Pump testing.
Pump testing. So things we have to do. Yes, thank you. Corey helped me out after that. Then vehicle maintenance, this is something new, vehicle maintenance. Typically, vehicle maintenance will work on our cars, any cars they can repair that are not under warranty. They have a separate account over there now. Both of them are in the public safety account. So that was just moved over from Department of Public Works. Professional development, we have tuition reimbursement. There are currently, I believe, 3 or 4 public safety officers, sergeants, and lieutenants that are attending college classes, which I think is very, very important, also very, very expensive. There's an contractual educational incentive. Then we have advanced training that isn't covered by Act 302 funds. And then we also have our Target Solutions, which is an online training platform that we can send out to all of our officers and PSAs where they can, we'll send out assignments on for fire training, for police training, for sexual harassment, for workplace violence. That's the way we get really important things out, and we can test them to make sure that they get the lessons. Public safety, the X 301 and 302 is the money we get from the MCOLs for training. We typically get about $4,500 a year. That comes, it's based upon full-time equivalent, and it's set by the state police, so it's kind of, it depends on what their, what funding formula they're working, but historically it's about $4,500, and we get that in two disbursements a year. We have fire medical training and honor guard training. We're hoping to add, I believe, 1 honor guard member next year. And then building improvements, we have the climb event, thank you. Right now we have exhaust for 2 trucks in the fire hall. Obviously, to add a truck, we need to add a 3rd exhaust in there, and that hooks, you've probably seen it, hooks right up to the exhaust of the apparatus, so that if it's running in the fire hall, it's vented out, it doesn't stay in the hall. We also, I don't think anybody knows when the last time our locks were rekeyed, so we're looking to rekey all the locks in the building, so we just make sure our building is secure. The fire hall extension, probably be a good time to talk about this now, probably. Sure. Okay. Right now we have a 60-foot ladder truck that was built in 95, thank you. That 60-foot ladder truck, for the horizontal reach, and I'm going to look at Corey and tell him to interrupt me if I'm saying something wrong, because he's the expert. The horizontal reach, it will, if we park that truck in the middle of the street, it will not get to the roof on most houses in the city. So we're not talking about Oxford Towers, we're not talking about tall buildings, we're talking about reaching a house from the street. This ladder will not do that. I don't know when it became obsolete, but it's clearly obsolete now. For the most part, venting of roofs you don't go on the roof, you do it from the ladder now. It's just not safe to go on a roof. I mean, I think there are probably times you do that, but you try not to, try to be as safe as possible. So we're looking at least 100-foot up to 110-foot ladder or hopefully platform if we can afford it in our budget, so that the horizontal reach on the can you help me out, Corey, how far that was on the truck we're looking at?
They're about anywhere between 98 and 101 foot horizontal reach. And right now we're at 51.
So we should be able to hit any house, and also for the vertical reach also. Obviously, you have a bigger ladder, you have a longer truck, so there is no truck that we're looking at that will fit in our current fire hall. So the plan is to go out about 10 feet, and it'll also depend upon when we get the hard costs, but go out 10 feet on all 3 bays. That'll give us a bay for the truck that'll fit in it. And anybody that's been in our fire halls, there's no room in front or behind the truck, so it's kind of hard to do anything. And we're going to be losing our one empty bay. So the thought is it'll give us a little bit of room inside also to work. And it's, you know, I think, I don't think any of us had a clue how much it would cost. And we had a professional design build company give us an estimate, and it came in at about $275,000. Any questions specific to that?
Well, I asked around this picture of the new one versus the old one,
Yeah.
straight up.
Not only, I mean, I went out to the end on a horizontal and it wasn't bouncing at all. It really big difference between the two.
So on the, I'm sorry, thank you. So I'm curious, so if we do the extension of the, we'll still be able to get out an angle to get out on the street and everything, because I know that 10 feet may cut the angle off and stuff like that, so you've got to figure all that, did all the math.
So all 3 trucks would be able to fit in front without blocking the sidewalk.
Okay.
So we could still, because they always look kind of cool when they're outside.
Plus events, you're not putting spectators by people enjoying the events, you're not putting them that, you know, too close to moving traffic or anything like that, so there does allow some buffer.
Cool. I'm sure we'll have more like construction type questions when we get to that part, you know, for down the road. But in terms of interruption of service and making sure things still fully operational, all that part of it.
Yeah, it'll be a project, but it's a project.
Oh, for sure.
That needs to be done.
Cool.
Then fire.
If
I'm
I
sorry.
may, just a moment. I'll wait till you get down to the vote.
Sure. Was there a question? For fire equipment, it's basically your fire replacement fire hose, mask, litters, replacement tape. I knew what that was one time. Oh, thermal imaging camera. Thank you. And kind of miscellaneous fire equipment. I'm sorry.
One of the items not reflected in here, but I know Mayor Pro Tem Baker and I have had conversations about is speed capturing equipment. I talked to Chief Pete about it. I know that Lieutenant Kobernick has been investigating those items and to try to work those into the budget at some later point. But to a question you previously emailed me, the budget as proposed here today doesn't include the purchase of those items. But we're working towards trying to get those, whether it be the permanent solar-powered installations or perhaps sharing with other communities a rolling speed tracker, pedometer, whatever the situation might be. But I know
They are anywhere from
Start about 3 to.
yeah, the sky's the limit.
Yeah,
So
Lieutenant Coburn, can you give us a little more background on what we're talking about here?
So I'll give you from the start. So somebody calls, somebody's going 50 down my street. Traditionally, what we've done is send an officer out there. They'll document the speeds. More recently, we've done this. We've documented speeds, come up with an average, and generally it's about 27 to 30 is what the real speed is. The issue is a guy has to manually sit there and capture these speeds and document them right down. A lot of this equipment that flashes the actual speed also has data tracking in it. What I'm looking for is something that just has data tracking. Because if, you know, and unfortunately, the same time that these people are complaining about speed is rush hour traffic. So our guys are busy doing other things, or school times, and they're at the schools. So to commit an officer to that area, it's really looking at how do we get this capture the speed so we can then do the enforcement. A blinking sign's great, but no enforcement is not good.
There's some pole-mounted options that I was looking at. Those are $2,000 range. And the data, to have the data put on it, it's a $200 option. It's not it's the sign that's the expense.
So we're talking main roads?
The ones that I was looking at, there's the big ones on trailers. Personally, I don't think that's as effective as pole-mounted ones that can actually be moved by a supervisor or robotic and actually moved around the city. And then, as you move that, you can then enforce it with an actual officer in a car.
So I think you get a better read on the speed also if there's not a police car there.
Flashing at each other.
Yeah. And those may be an option for a main road. The flashing ones in a residential street, it's probably better to have kind of a hidden one.
Thank you. Thanks for continuing this thing. It's an important thing. I know we've chatted a couple times about it. I appreciate the additional work that's been going into it. And I do like the broader, comprehensive perspective that you guys are thinking about, right? So I take Adams Road up to Rochester to go help my mom out, and they do have those blinky things, and I notice the difference of people driving. They see the thing blinking at them, and they slow down. So to whatever extent that's continued to be part of the broader solution, I think makes sense. In terms of like tracking the actual speed, don't they have those like rubber tube things that you lay across the road that you just go kind of a thing?
TIA has been, and TIA has been great. They're doing some studies on in a residential area, drawing a complete blank where it is. But they have other customers also, so we can't use them for everything. But they do have speed studies on, and we're waiting for the final report for Coolidge. But I'm sure they can help us out on that too.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just thinking of different ways to, if our intent is to capture data about what people are actually doing, those little tube things seem to be pretty cool. And then in terms of like the visual, like notifying drivers that, hey, we actually are paying attention, kind of the thing, those blinky things, I think are definitely part of the solution I'm hoping for.
I know on Main Street in Clawson, you can really.
Oh yeah, it's like they slow right down.
Yeah.
And that there is that visual perception, I think, signals to the residents and to the visitors that we really do care about this and we really do pay attention to it. So I'm glad to hear that that's part of the conversation. I certainly welcome the dialogue about budget amendments as we do a little more research and put some proposals together.
I just have a question. So the equipment that has data capture, you can then look at that and decide where to put your resources. Can you retroactively ticket someone that way, or?
Michigan, it's unconstitutional to use any kind of speed limits. Like Arizona, some states you can do it. In Michigan, as far as I know, it's unconstitutional to use any kind of mechanical.
Okay, thank you.
And these are, even though they're pole mounted, they are portable. You can move them around.
Which is nice.
We had several speed trailers in Farmington Hills, and we were just in the process when I left of going to the pole mount. They were just a little bit more economical and a little bit easier to hide too, quite honestly, where you need to. Just to get real data, you're not trying to play any games. You'd like to know what the data is when you're not.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Sure. And we got some furniture, including we'd like to put some cabinets and countertops in this room to make it a little more user-friendly, especially if we're going to be hosting. This is a nice room. It's really got some potential. It just needs some work. So, and I kind of like the walls. I was kind of hoping to keep the same color. That's not going to work. And then a little further down, we have the overhead projector, so we don't have to put it on the table. I'd like to thank Stan too, while I can, for helping me out on a lot of these numbers too. Our plan is to put two flat screen monitors at the front of the room and one back here, so that if there's a presentation, anybody in the room can see it. We can also use it to monitor media for EOC, and also if you need to monitor different screens as an emergency operations center or a training center, you can do that.
We anticipate putting cameras in here for locking up the EOC has a lot of manuals, a lot of forms that we need, those types of things that need to be stored. We don't want to call them in here. So I hope we're including the cabinets so we can keep the stuff in this room.
I'm sure there'll be money in the budget for that. Then we have dedicated PC for this room, the installation, sound system. So basically, this room would get a makeover. As Mr. Baumgarten said, it'd be really nice to be able to host training here. So it's good and it's bad. It's good because we can usually get more people. It can be free. It's bad because you're here and you get bothered, but with work stuff and instead of being off-site. But it's always better to keep our people in the city. So we'd like to host training both for our members and also for the public too. We have some plans down the road for some citizen police academy, things like that. So we'd like this room to be appropriate for that. Also, we are looking to replace our current 6-hour 40 caliber pistols with Glock 9mm pistols. Back in the day, the 9mm was all the rage. Then everybody went to 40s. Now everyone's going back to 9mm with the proper ammo. So some people are hard to change, but with the proper ammo, you get a lot. First of all, we get a better value for $1 with Glocks. And with that round, there's a lot less recoil. It's clearly the way to go based upon the research I've seen. Couple replacement of a couple tasers. We have 2 AEDs that need to be replaced. We need the interview system for our the camera system for our interview room that's on the 2nd floor here needs to be replaced. We're mandated for certain crimes to be recording those, and right now we have to take them down to the jail, which isn't conducive for interviews for the most part. Our in-car camera system's getting close to end of life. That's not till we're hoping to maybe look at that next year, and then we have some range costs. So that's it for the equipment.
Councilmember.
Sure. Primary with Corey, what's the status of incident planning software?
Still researching what's out there. There's 3 or 4 vendors.
Approximate cost of these about $2,400 you talked about that?
Yeah, about $2,500, and that's dual purpose. That's pre-incident planning as well as or inspection software as well, so it can be utilized for the fire inspectors.
We haven't budgeted for that yet.
We have not.
So, next budget year is. Thank you.
Councilmember, cabinets for the EOC are budgeted for under the furniture line item, the 981.
Okay, thank you.
And then going a little further, a new all-in-one MFP for investigations. Another radio equipment. This is another one where we're basically buying replacements or repairs for the existing equipment we have. As indicated earlier, we're looking to purchase 2 new marked patrol SUVs and a Ford F-150 pickup truck to replace the existing pickup truck we have, which is, you guys know what year that is off the top of your head? 2003. So it's about 15 years old. We use that quite a bit for hauling hose and for training besides everyday use, and it's fully equipped to respond to emergencies also. So we green crews, yeah, when it's all hands on deck. And getting the next page, the fire truck, and we're hoping to purchase at least 100-foot, hopefully platform, if not platform aerial. And then we have our SCBA equipment. And any questions on it?
Any questions on anything so far? At the end?
Okay.
All right, so,
Last page.
oh yeah, see this, Chief, and the lieutenants that are here. With, the change, obviously, we've had some turnover, personnel changes. Are there things still that you and the lieutenants would like to see, that maybe didn't fit into this budget right now, or aren't necessarily part of next year's proposal at this point, the things that we think we want to start paying more attention to?
Really, the general yeah, there are a few things. I do think training, education is huge, and I've encouraged that since I've been here, and we're hoping the funds we have allocated this year or next year will, and I think we're okay this year probably, but college classes are not inexpensive. And by contract, there's a reimbursement, and it depends upon grade too, so that does make a little bit of a difference. The building needs some work too, and we're kind of trying to take it on a little bit at a time. Obviously, our first priority is really, it's a safety issue for the ladder truck to have one that does what we need, so the fire hall pretty much has to come first. But the building, there's some issues we have. We have a couple things coming up where we need to have some electrical work done and take away the drain pipes from the electrical conduits, which I'm not an electrician, but apparently that's not good. So it's some of the stuff that's been done. And the goal is to do it right the first time. That's why I'm not going to lie, I got sticker shock when I saw $275,000 for the fire hall, but you're talking an investment that'll, years and years, 30 years. Same thing with a ladder truck. You could get something a little expensive now, but if it doesn't do what you need in 5 or 10 years, then you're a little bit further behind. So there is a lot of things we're talking about. So to answer your question in a long way, yes.
Lieutenant Scobernick Miller, anything that you guys want to address before we move on here? Thank you guys for being involved in this and being here tonight, and good morning, Cheryl, see you on Wednesday night. Yes. Anything else that you guys, since you guys have
Thank you. Corey asked for a fire truck, so I'm thinking of something. I pretty much can get anything. Yes,
okay. So that's you?
Just the building is, for the most part, I would say, that's the biggest.
In terms of technology, manpower, all the big items.
I think technology Stan's got us, I don't want to be built a little too big, but he's really got us. In the last 2 or 3 years, he's got us turned right around with the technology and stuff. Good.
Now, everything on our budget is important, but speaking for myself, when it comes to public safety, certainly don't have a problem looking at training, something you mentioned. I think that's something we need to make sure that we're constantly looking at. And if we can add a little bit more for training here and there to give our officers the tools that they need to be successful and respond in any circumstance, it's certainly something that we're going to look at. I would assume that council agrees with me. I'm not trying to speak for anybody here.
Oh, go ahead.
There are a few things that are more important than the safety of our residents. So, thank you for everything you guys do.
Yeah, we'll tell you, we really appreciate the support of the residents. I've seen it in the short time I've been here, how much people appreciate it and the support of yourselves. So, we are team players, though. We don't want to ask for, everything we ask for is things we thought we needed, but we also realize, there's a big picture.
So, and I understand that, and I've learned over the years that you don't get what you don't ask for. So if we don't know if there's something, I'm not saying it's going to happen right away, but at least it can be on our radar and something that we can work to. Thank you. Councilor, ahead.
I have a question not about financing the interfund transfer from water and sewer. I don't know if this is the appropriate place for us to discuss it.
You want to do that now, or you want to do it when we get to that? It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, that's fine. And then we can, anything outstanding we can discuss, any questions we can answer this evening, we can discuss in the context of the water and sewer discussions tomorrow evening, so.
Okay, please. And I think some of the concern I have is, I want the fire truck, so we'll put that out there. But the transferring the money from the water fund, at the same time that we have increased rates, let's not transfer money, but loaning money from the water fund, make that clear, because we will be paying it back. But I think people are going to see we've raised rates, we're going to be raising rates on water, and then at the same time, we have enough money in there that we're able to lend money out of the fund. And I think people are going to say, well then, don't you have enough money in there already? Why are you raising my rates if you have enough money to, distribute it elsewhere? So I have a little concern with, that, and, is there an alternative mechanism we could do to still fund the fire truck?
So I want to keep the conversation until we have Derek here, and we're going through that tomorrow.
Okay.
The rest of it, if there's any other additional, places we could have done this. I don't want to go too far down the watershed without Derek here.
Okay.
To give his input on, why we do the things we do. It's a very important question. I think we all have been answering. I just want to make sure Derek's here to be involved in that conversation as well. So I think that'll help clarify.
And I'm fine with that, yeah.
And we'll certainly do a deeper dive on the rates, the appropriateness of the fund balance, and how we plan to reimburse that fund, of course, next decade, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions that relate to public safety? Seeing none, you guys are off the clock here. Head into community promotions.
Community promotion starts on page 39 of your book, and I've asked Deputy City Manager Doug Shellstrom to address that.
Good evening. Community Promotions is a non-staffed, if you will, cost center that handles all of the costs associated with what we do in the community. The website, web hosting, Cruise Fest expenses, and some other things. So if you start on page 39, you'll notice the memberships that the city is involved in, from the Clinton Watershed, MML, WA3, the Chamber, SIMCOD, and then the Mayor's Association. This budget also carries the expense for our website hosting and all of our website cost, the cost of our mobile app, and any other improvements that we might consider for the website. There's also the annual fees to keep the website up as well. Under contractual services, all of the costs for commissions and boards are there. The one thing you'll notice is that
One quick
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor. About the website, mobile app and stuff, I noticed there's a bit of a projected increase from the 17-18 to 18-19. Is that to make it good and stuff like that? Sorry, I mean the website itself is a big step forward from what we had in the past, right? So newer technology, of course, is going to help with that. The mobile app, I think, took about 7 steps back from what we used to have, and so I'd love to at least see if we could kind of get back to where we used to be from 5 years ago, if not move forward with what the technology can do these days. So is that how I should interpret the projected increase in here,
Yes.
or is this okay? All right.
Yes.
Yeah, 3 buttons, and one of which just takes you to the website. It's not a service to the residents. And
Yeah.
Even some of the ones that are produced in-house around the area, we've done a pretty deep dive, downloaded I don't know how many city apps. Far more robust, far more useful tool to any of the users. I think one of the reasons you don't see as much app traffic as we'd like is because once you go there, you see the options. You probably likely never open it again. So it needs work and needs to be improved.
All right, thank you. And just to that point too, certainly the inward capabilities of promoting Berkley itself is paramount to us. At the same time, there's regional opportunities to partner with things like C-Click-Fix and those types of tools, which are broadening in adoption across the region, because resident or visitor may or may not know what city they're in when they see a big pothole or a tree down in the middle of something, and that's where platforms like C-Click-Fix can really help, and they can integrate with almost any kind of platform that's out there. So if and how there's opportunities to engage with the residents and with others that happen to know a little bit about technology, to provide some additional insight to help support this endeavor, I'd be glad to help support that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we're actually currently talking to a website developer on a couple of things. You might see some minor changes happening right now, where we're trying to get some of the aesthetics on the website taken care of, and then there's some functionality issues that really bother me too, so we're working on those as well.
Thanks.
Councilman Blanchard?
While we're on this page, under membership, I think this is what we should put
Project, yes, that's one of the notes I was going to bring to council's attention.
We want to keep track of it. We're not utilizing it. They've done member services so far.
Yes, sir.
For meetings and conferences, there's no funds allocated there. For advertising, we have promotional items. We haven't bought any promotional items in a while. We normally have pins and things that, so like if a council member goes to an event, we want to give some mementos out, or if students come to City Hall and they take a tour, they talk to council members, you have something to give them. We haven't done that in a while, but we will be doing that in this budget year, using city seal and other artwork from the city. As far as newspaper ads are concerned, we've had, this last year I think has been probably the most challenging year in terms of turnover. So we've done a lot of posting in various places. So it's usually been sort of an afterthought. And this year's budget is maybe a little bit more proactive to put more funds there other than like $50. I think we've probably, in this current budget year, posted 6 positions maybe? Something, it's been a few. It's been a few. For professional development, that's where we house the expenses for the Cruise Fest dinner, the state of the city. We have a small amount there for the Woodward 5. The Woodward 5 has not been functional for the last few years, but there's just a small amount there in case there's ever some one unifying issue that we need to bring everybody together for, so we have a little bit of funding to work with in terms of to advance a point or a cause or whatever that's consistent in the Woodward 5 cities.
Promoting the uniqueness of Woodward as Mayor, Councilmember, former Mayor Nikita Birmingham refers to as the linear city. Starting to build on that idea. I know Mayor Berkley has been very instrumental in sort of helping that mentality gain traction along with his counterpart in the city of Ferndale. That's how this is the fund where we would start to build upon that mentality and sort of become like an active member in creating sort of a linear city mentality along Woodward with our counterparts that also touch it. So we keep that in there under the Woodward 5 name because I think there's good work to be done. I think you outlined a clear vision for that.
Councilor Bush.
I think the Cruise Fest dinner item is too high. I think that's ridiculously high. Unless the mayor's going to get really, really hungry. That's about 10 people.
Yeah, it was, I feel it was probably 10 to 11 this year. I think we have more like kids. They don't eat any of it, so, yeah.
But we do try to keep the cost down, and sometimes we never know how many people are actually going to attend. We typically invite about 15 to 20 people. And, they don't always show up, but we also don't buy for 20 people. So we just kind of work with that number there and be reasonable. This year, DTE is sponsoring us again, so, and they have agreed to, for their Grand Marshal, to select a DTE employee who is also a veteran, which I think is outstanding.
So we would likely not expend that full amount. So.
I don't think we ever have. No.
Thank you. Just sorry to jump back real quick. The job postings. Just curious on what platform does that mean? Is that like MML? Is that who paying for that?
Oh gosh, it's MML. It's professional organizations. It's sometimes newspapers to reach a certain area, or where we're trying to attract people from a certain group. I try to take it wherever we need it to go. Because if you do the same thing all the time, sometimes you don't get
the same pool.
You get the same pool.
Yeah. For example, in seeking a finance director, we advertise with Michigan Governmental Finance Officers Association. Try to do industry-specific postings depending on where the vacancy occurs.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
And last but not least is the Berkley Buzz, which is the publication that's done by the Parks and Rec Department. They still print hard copies, and they still actually do mail out to the residents, and I am amazed at how many residents wait with bated breath to get the newest edition of the Buzz.
The Buzz, I think, is a very useful tool, and the fact that you mentioned it does go to everybody, and it is a hard copy. I have a problem with the expense for that. The issue that I have is that the Buzz, for whatever reason, and maybe this is a conversation with Parks and Rec, seems to be coming after most of the programs of the Buzz have already started. For whatever reason, it comes usually a week or so after the programs that have begun already. And so a lot of residents probably are missing out on potential opportunities at the Parks and Recreation Department. I don't know if it's a timing issue with when before the vocations come out, or if we can do something to move that up, or at least make sure that we're coordinating the times a little bit better.
Well, the buzz is primarily handled by Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
The cost of it is just
Right, I
captured.
know. I just want to make sure we bring that up tomorrow on Parks and Rec this year.
One of the conversations that we've been having specific to the buzz is expanding the purview of our publication, our print publications. Teresa has discussed, having a Parks and Rec section, but of a larger feature magazine almost, as a way to better advertise and promote what's going on within the city. I think a parallel would be like the downtown publication by the Birmingham Bloomfield areas. I think even Oak Park came out with a recent publication about that. It's they call it City Guide. So I'd like to continue to explore that, not only with Teresa, but some of our other departments. Maybe it encompasses then the city's newsletter, some of the featurettes that we do through promotion or through communications. Perhaps some part of it is supplemented by the DDA as well. They have sort of a night out in Berkley kind of a feel to it, but a lot of promotion opportunities there, and I'm excited to get the Community Citizens Engagements Advisory Committee's feedback on such publications.
I was going to say, I think that committee will probably be discussing that a lot. And we used to have a city wide publication this year, but one meeting we're having some financial
And so, the effectiveness of a print document varies, vastly depending on whose mailbox it ends up in. But it could very well be a good tool.
That it? That's it. Any additional questions, comments on communication or community promotions? Okay, let's move on to the library. Mr. Church.
Page 67 of your book.
Good evening. So we can just start going through it.
Unless you have any sort of preamble?
No,
Okay.
none.
All right.
None.
Let's go.
Okay, great. So we have 3 full-time employees. The rest of our staff is part-time. We are kind of working through a transitional period as we had 2 long-time staff members retire. So we have our core, and then we're bringing in new people and getting them trained. So been a little bumpy at times, but we're all figuring things out and getting through it. Office supplies are holding steady from year to year. Everyone is thanking Stan, so I'll say thanks to the help of the toner costs there. A lot of these items hold steady from year to year. Our periodical costs, that gets magazines on the shelf, a good mix of newspapers, and then subscriptions, reference services there as well. Downloadable content is an area of growth here. We've got our downloadable Overdrive subscription. That's a set fee year to year. There's a slight increase there from the consortium. The Zinio is our downloadable magazine service. And then we've found that the Hoopla digital content service has been quite popular. So that's a different model there. So we've allocated a little more money to that. We ran with it for about a year and saw that people really do love this service. So we wanted to make sure we were still making resources available there. Program supplies helps cover just some of our programs and events at the library. And then program supplies from contributions. Most of that comes from the Friends of the Library. So whatever we expense here, we receive as a reimbursement from the Friends. Vibe Credit Union sponsors some of our summer reading programs for about $1,000 every year, but the rest really is from the Friends of the Library. Maintenance supplies just covers paper towels, soap, just the routine things to keep us running there. We do receive or use a charge card at the front desk, so we can accept that as a form of payment. We pass on the fee to the user, so it's a 2.75% service charge. Now that we are selling the yard waste tags at the front desk, though, we're not using the credit card machine as often, but very happy to have that as a service. It will be interesting to track 1 year to the next to see how the yard waste tags change that equation. We are a organizational membership for the Michigan Library Association. That's our only membership. That's at the organizational level. We have annual cleaning by McCoy. That's the contract for the year there. They come in every day after we're open, and then a small allocation for hazardous cleanup. So always happy to have that set aside when we need it. We have 3 small sections under contractual services. We continue to use the collection agency, so accounts that have rate abuse or loss, we do have a method in place to hopefully recoup those expenses. We have our annual calendar, which provides program registration and events. And then we have an annual Amazon Prime subscription that allows us to get 2-day shipping, quick delivery of items. So that's a big help. We are part of the library cooperative, so that's a 60 or so member library cooperative in the area. We receive a lot of our core services from them. They're able to do things much more efficiently than we're able to, both cost and expertise. Automation is the big line item there. That is for the database that allows us to check items out, maintain our patron database, and then the full catalog of all of our holdings. We're in the process of a big shift right now to a new vendor for that service, so that change will be taking place Memorial Weekend. So new things on the horizon, so again, another learning curve there. Delivery is an item in there as well. That gets items between Berkley and all of the participating libraries. We get delivery 4 days a week. We can generally get something from Novi to here just in a day or 2. So that's a big help and a plus for Berkley residents. Let's see. Telephone is just the basic phone charges there. Printing covers just, again, just basic flyers, summer reading program, expenses like that. Our utilities have gone down a bit. We're still budgeting at the $25,000 there, always hoping for savings. Electric has come down, but water's gone up, so kind of balancing out there. Building maintenance has decreased as well. We have been 15,000. We're now at about 14,000 per year is what we're aiming for. The biggest change there is savings in electrical repairs since we switched to LED lights. Much less maintenance there. Our HVAC system is old. It's 20 years old, so definitely setting aside money there for repairs as they come up. Everything else there is fairly straightforward. We do have office equipment maintenance, so we budget money there. We don't always spend it, but that covers hard drive replacements, upgrades to machines to keep them running longer, things like that. Professional development, there are 2 main conferences in the state, the annual Michigan Library Association conference, and then a Spring Institute conference for children's librarians in particular.
Back to the HVAC, what are we looking at in terms of their timeline? What was that?
2020 for
2021?
Yeah, so we're planning to get a few more years out of
Can we get a few more years?
I think so. I've been really pleased. We switched HVAC contractors about 2 years ago. The new guys that also handle the municipal buildings have done a great job identifying problems and coming up with really reasonable fixes to keep us it's running. So a few years ago, I didn't feel as confident, but I feel like they really understand our system now. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. In terms of looking ahead, building improvements, we're looking at a renovation of our story time and program room. We hold story times there 3 days a week. It's also a main draw for our families that visit the library. When it's not being used for story times, it's available as a coloring and activity room, so families can hang out there. Right now, we're looking at fresh floors and new tables. We have 2 large cafeteria-style tables, which are pretty difficult to fold up, especially if it's just a single librarian there trying to do it. The Friends are interested in helping to fund this project, so we'll be looking at them as partners for this. The parking lot is the other big project coming up. So this is mainly to get a couple more years out of useful life out of our parking lot. So we'll do some asphalt repair, seal coating in the parking lot, restriping, and then DPW's recommending some catch basin repair work. We have a steel plate over one of our catch basins now that sunk down in the winter, so now that it's finally warmer weather, they'll peel the plate back and see what needs to be done. But they'd like to proactively do some work to the other catch basins. Books and rented materials, that's really the mainstay of the library. Those are the new books and materials that we put out on the shelf. We have a line for books from donations, so if someone passes away, someone wants to remember someone's birthday, they'll make a donation to the library. It adds up there, $20, $50 at a time. We also do our Giving Tree campaign there as well. This last year we raised over $2,000 there. That's our annual fundraiser. No furniture replacement planned. We are planning 2 office equipment projects. One will be a public copier and then an updated coin and bill acceptor as well, so that people can pay for their prints. We'll be moving to a coloring machine as there's been more demand for that. And then the bill acceptor will make it easier to pay for those more costly colored prints. And then finally, mobile printing is something that we've had a lot of our patrons asking for. So the ability to use your laptop or phone to send a print job to our public print station. Then you'll be able to log in, release your job, pay for it right there in the self-serve station. You'll even be able to send print jobs from home. So you could do something at home and then just stop in and pay for it, and you're out the door.
I like that.
So that my printer doesn't work, excuses no longer.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So that is the library budget as it stands.
I want to ask you, Matt, the same thing I asked the chief. Is there anything else? I know libraries had to shift from the downloadable content. We still want to have, our hardcover, hard copy books, I should say there. Is there anything else that you're looking at aside from the HVAC that we talked about that you think would be able to enhance the quality of the experience for our residents that are using the library?
I think our current plan of investing every fiscal year into the building and facility has been working. I'm very grateful for the Friends of the Library. They contribute a great amount that allows us to do a lot of fun programs. Without them, we definitely have to make some decisions about what we're able to offer. So I think the current mix is working well.
Okay, excellent. Anything else for our library director? No? Good job.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Now shift into communications.
Page 72, so you just flip the page there.
Thank you.
Communications, as we move through, we did, as of last budget year, we did hire a new communications coordinator, replacing Chelsea Machota, and it's Jay Grossman, for those that have not had a chance to meet him. He's a full-time employee. You'll see the salaries and fringes associated with his appointments listed in the first section there. That is really the only, I would say, substantial change in the budget from the year previous. As we move down there, we still have program supplies budgeted. $500 is basically an annual contribution to cover those supplies associated with capturing and hard copy as much as possible things like DVDs, memory cards, film, if you remember what that is, as well as batteries. Contractual services, we continue to have memberships with ICCA, which is communication coordinator.
Intergovernmental Consortium for Cable.
ICA. So we have a membership with ICA as well as the Alliance for Community Media. One thing to note would be the cable production line. We anticipate doing some video informational pieces in the lead up to the November ballot. We also intend to I guess you say still film, but record and capture the ZBA meetings. An ongoing conversation is whether or not to live stream them, but certainly capture them and make them available on YouTube would be a step in the right direction. That's not something we currently do. ZBA has a variable number of meetings every year. They have a set schedule where they're scheduled to meet every Monday, but in the last few years they've canceled several meetings simply for lack of agenda items. And so on occasion we will have to record and keep the ZBA meetings. So we do anticipate, I think that's going to be a step in the right direction as far as the transparency goes. So those are the accounts for the increases in the cable production line item. Contractual services remains basically unchanged from the year previous, as does.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear about recording the ZBA meetings. Is there any consideration for recording work sessions, council and planning commission work sessions such as this?
It's not reflected in this budget. Work sessions being sort of not as formal in their setup. You know, we're kind of, as you probably will find out in a little bit, you just got a camera trying to capture general discourse. We very rarely mic people. We have not had that conversation just because I don't think the venue itself translates well to film. But the ZBA would be different, and it is more of a formalized meeting structure with the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals sitting in place of the council for that particular meeting. So they all sit around, their mics, their camera. It would be an easier thing to film. So, long answer to a short question. I apologize. Telephone numbers. Telephone, you see some of the few places where we actually see a little bit of an increase there. But on the aggregate, as we discussed, the telephone expenditures have dropped significantly. These conferences have been moved down into professional development. See that in minutes. Liability insurance is at zero for reasons discussed previously. Cable franchise admin fee was appropriately shifted into this department, starting with the last budget year.
Is there any conversation about, or with AT&T that be carrying our open meetings right now? I understand that they're still not.
That is something
There.
that is the issue that ICA actually has been working with our attorneys to see what we can leverage for them to do that. There's a number of communities that have purchased the equipment that AT&T wants us to buy. In order to do that is like very, very expensive.
Yeah,
So-
no, I'm not saying I want us to do
No,
that.
we're still working towards
just
that.
Continue the conversation because it's unfortunate that a number of our residents cannot watch in meetings live because AT&T is trying to charge us or something that any other companies are not currently and should pass it.
Yeah, last time I checked in, the quality of the AT&T broadcast is pretty low too.
Every time they come knocking on my door and try to give me a switch, I make them aware of that.
Coming down, as discussed, professional developments. We're funding some opportunities for our communications coordinator to do more editing in-house as opposed to depending on CMN. Ironically, CMN is the one teaching them how to do that. But it'd be good for us long term. And then professional conferences are also included in this. So the opportunity for Jay to continue to grow in his role as the communications coordinator and find out unique ways to further the way that we communicate the city's messages, opportunities to our residents, and just information in general. So I intend, Jay will have a very close relationship with the advisory committee.
Thank you, Aaron. Glad to hear that we're continuing the work on the streaming of the meetings and things through the other cable channels, at least we do have the ability to broadcast on. And I'm also happy that many of the meetings are recorded and posted to YouTube for archival viewing after the fact. So those who don't have or do have AT&T and are unable to watch things in real time, they must resort to this Ustream kind of platform at the moment. I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to experience that platform, but it's not an optimal experience either. I think it's because this last time I checked, we're still operating at the free tier. Which did we change? Is that in here? Did we miss it? Because that's something I'd like to celebrate. If we've gotten on the free tier.
I think it's in community promotions.
Okay, so yeah, so thank you for that. I'm glad, if nothing else, to draw attention to the fact that I have received many complaints from residents who did use the Ustream and those commercial interruptions at inopportune times, where they don't pause, they just cut away and then come back in the middle of a different sentence.
Always on the right to going to vote too.
Yeah, we're incredibly frustrating for viewers. So I'm glad to hear that that's been taken care of as part of this budget. So thank you.
Actually, the last budget year we did.
All right, because I still heard complaints last year, so maybe something wasn't switched right on their part or something like that. But I'm glad to hear that we've got it in here, and I'll ask those folks again for additional input. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last item of note would be the previously mentioned HD camera upgrade in the council chambers. We upgraded cameras in previous years. This is, we're trying to do a little bit at a time. We're going to wait till to find out sort of the fate of City Hall before we invest in that item. So it may or may not occur.
What does an HD camera do for us if it's not broadcast? HD when it's on. Let's get that there.
Okay, so if you remember your 1.5 pixel,
I'm sure.
yeah. So we have something that's probably less than 1.5 because it's the old security camera from the court. That's the last camera that needs to be replaced. The clarity of the pictures is just phenomenal.
I think our digital viewers will see a difference, those that are on YouTube, even if they're not being broadcasted as such.
Thank you, King Honor. And I saved this question, not sure if it was under the IT piece, maybe it still is, but when the chief talked about mounting a projector here in this room, obviously you know that there's been a pent-up demand to have similar convenience in City Hall as well, given the relatively affordable price tag that he suggested for just the thing and the laptop and little connections and stuff. Is that something that's part of this, or is it part of IT, or is it not part of the budget that we can consider amendments? Yeah. So again, knowing that the fate of City Hall is yet to be decided, I still think that there's a lot of time between now and November, and even if it was, I did some quick math, 2,600, the capital equipment wouldn't be lost if we did redo City Hall. So I don't think that investment would go to waste. I just would like to see, as part of the opportunity here, to wherever it makes sense, either now or in IT.
No, I agree. It's something that we have spoken about before, and the fate of City Hall notwithstanding, I would much rather see it in this budget now. It's just, every time somebody comes in there, we try to put books on there,
Sure.
We gotta get over this, and then we gotta go over that.
Fancy reams of paper.
It's just not a good look for the city in terms of what we're trying to project from a professional atmosphere, that we don't have an adequate projection. So I would much rather just see it go into the budget now, before we group it, as opposed to and if something changes and the City Hall certainly changes, then again, we're not going to lose the. It's not just going
screw it and put it back in the new one.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think I'm really in favor of that, and I think make sure that we can, people that are sitting on both sides of the room are able to see it.
Yeah. Anybody on council have an issue with that going into the budget, or anybody feel strongly that they do not want to go to the budget?
I think it's a combination of them.
Seeing none. Put that in there.
Thank you, sir.
And that, like I said, that does conclude items of notes for communications.
Any other questions, communications? not, we'll bring up our resident celebrity.
The more they mention my name, the more questions I'm gonna get, so.
You will have wonderful answers to all those
Yes,
questions.
I'm sure I will.
And we again, this isn't to make jokes, you do a phenomenal job here, and I don't think that often people see that or recognize that because you're often doing behind the scenes things, but the impact that you do have and have had on the city so far across all departments, it is measurable, and the residents and even staff, us probably don't see everything that you do. Before we get into your budget, we're saying that, and now
Okay.
we could have changes there.
Yeah, exactly.
Page 74 of your budget book starts the information technology.
And I just want to say too that I am not the one-man show. I mean, realistically, everybody at this table here, as far as all the directors, all the staff and everything, have facilitated a lot of things. I can get the technology into the building, but simple things like in public safety as far as like mounts and things like that, I can tell you that Lieutenant Kobernick has done quite his fair share of helping me out, making technology work in this building, so.
And humble to the list.
Yeah. I believe me, I can't do everything, but I have wonderful coworkers, I can honestly say, that have made things a heck of a lot easier. So.
That's true.
This is me as far as salaries and fringe benefits. Contractual services, we'll jump down to there. Network services, as far as anything that I need some advanced assistance on, as far as installation and things go, this would cover that. This is, next line is WOW Internet. I can say that we've had WOW for approximately about 3 years. Very reliable. We've pretty much stated that same price as far as budget goes and everything. They keep giving us more and more speed. We're to the point now we're kind of maxed out at a certain level where we're getting about a gig download speed for the entire city. I've been kind of doing a year-to-year thing. The price that we're locked in now is for a 3-year contract, and it costs us I think $1 more per month to go from 300 to 1,000. So we'll talk a little bit more about as far as some wireless plans and things like that now that we have some core infrastructure stuff coming down the road. Amcon fiber repair, that's basically any type of windstorms, accidents, squirrels that happen to chew through lines. They're going to come out and fix that. Suntel, as far as for phone system, that's just as needed. AT&T pole attachment, all the fiber that we have running through the city. We have to pay AT&T and DTE to attach their telephone poles. Telephone is just iPad, my cell phone.
Hold on one second, Councilor.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a big jump in the contractual services from this past year, previous years. What was the jump there?
That is a good question. I think we've as far as operationally, I moved some line items around as far as contractual services and things like that. Suntel used to come out of the telephone in City Hall, and over the past probably 3 years, I've kind of put things in the right spots. I tell Matt all the time, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So I want to put the funds in the right spots so that I can see, I think, for not only myself, but for everybody here at the table, can kind of see where the expenses are going as far as up and down and things like that. In years past, things have been spread out a little too much. I think starting last year and including this year, I think Lori, Sue, and I have kind of tried to put monies where they're supposed to be and not where they've always been. So that it's easier for everyone here to kind of recognize where the money's actually going. So
I didn't see anything inappropriate, just wanted to.
No,
great, thanks.
Equipment maintenance, our firewall for our maintenance fee, professional development is the standard webinars, training, my yearly conference up north.
for all the government IT workers as far as at a state, county, and local level. Office equipment is probably where all the big money is being spent. I plan on this year upgrading the firewall due to the speeds as far as WOW is giving us, plus everybody seems to be using PCs more, that we're going to have to go to a bigger firewall. This firewall will not be certainly sitting in a closet somewhere. We're actually going to roll that over to the library for increased security there. It seems over the past year or two that security is probably the #1 priority now when it comes to any type of network. So we're going to be securing any internet connections. As far as WOW for the city, the library has a connection from their library cooperative TLN, and so we'll be doing some upgrades as far as that goes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. This is the kind of wall that I'd like to see built, so thank you for putting that there. And I actually did have a point besides serving up that joke.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Okay. So at the Michigan Municipal League Capital Conference, some of the sessions that I attended had to do with cybersecurity and things. And there's some really interesting programs. I passed along some information to the city manager recently that may warrant some looking into. There's some things at the county level as well, some things we can do at the municipal level to continue to better understand and fortify, along these lines and more. So in addition to the hardware and the firmware and the software, there's also the wetware of what's going on in people's heads. So things that you can do to all 4 of those to help make a difference. So to whatever extent we're able to do that, I know some of them come with no additional cost, and some of the policy changes, and some may actually comprise some kind of an investment. So no recommended specific items at this time, but just to take a peek at that and see if there's something else that might make sense.
Yeah, at the county level, you're talking about the size that they've implemented. I've started looking at that, and we've kind of implemented things just as needed, and we are progressing toward that. A lot of it does not apply to us just because, as far as a size of an organization, we're more of a small to medium business. So some of the security stuff is for large organizations as far as that, so it wouldn't be applicable. But a lot of the basic stuff people have grumbled about some of that because the convenience that we've had is sort of going away a little bit because of the security. So along with that, public safety has their own criminal justice information requirements, and I've slowly implemented some of those as far as we've upgraded the in-car computers, I've locked down more of the workstations within the building to comply with that. Lots of grumbling there because of the whole convenience versus security thing.
Right.
But it's a change, and people adapt, and we move on. So.
I want to applaud that. I think as we become more professional, and certainly with your stewardship, we are taking significant strides down that path to beef this stuff up. The cyber criminals are getting just as clever, and so that trade-off of convenience for security is not a difficult choice in my mind. And also for a couple of years now, I know our financial audit has come across like the segregation of duties and some of these other kinds of either policy and or technology type of things. I'd really love to not see that on the item this time around. So whatever extent we can do to, again, if it's policy or some additional inconveniences in order to make sure we're doing things the right way, I'd really love to see that done as well.
Yeah, well,
I think that hopefully will also be addressed with Ginger, because having moved through and John coming in and doing what he's doing, and now moving to Ginger, I think we're going to be able to address those internal controls from the departmental.
Yeah, I'm optimistic for that for sure. I mean, we saw traces of this even back when we had David here in the past. So it's certainly there's a systemic thing there but there's steps to do it. Yeah, for sure.
Small organizations and many of them small municipalities kind of have the same issues with segregation of duties, but now that we do have a next permanent finance director in place, we'll be working to address those items.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
many of the policy changes will be addressed only because of some of the latest law enforcement requirements. There are going to be mandated policies, and a lot of those policies can also be flipped over to the city, so it would be more of an umbrella policy. So we have a long list. I believe we're being audited by the state police, I think it's next year. So a lot of those policies will be worked on beforehand. So.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. We're looking at potentially getting iPads for Parks and Rec and for an additional 2 iPads for Public Works. Parks and Rec want to use it for camps as far as check-ins and things like that and everything. Their database software went from a kind of internal type database to a cloud database that will fall in with some of the wireless activities that we're going to be doing around the community center and everything. So that will blend in quite well together. The department PCs, as far as a 50% replacement. We're a Microsoft shop. We use Microsoft Office. We're Microsoft Windows. We use BSNA software that runs on a Windows platform. Windows 7, which I'd say 95% of our machines run on, that will no longer be supported in 2020. So to get ahead of the curve, we will be doing some aggressive replacements. As far as we roughly have about 80 machines in the city, as far as that includes the library. Department PCs is everything, whether it be your adult computers, all the way to the mechanic has now a computer in the garage to look at wiring diagrams for the public safety vehicles. So the big issue that we've had in the past is we've had a very slow replacement cycle, and we bought them in very small quantities. No one gives us a discount for buying 5 computers at a time.
No, I was going to ask if we should lump them all together,
Yeah.
as opposed to, aside from the budget, respecting the budget $40,000 next year.
Mm-hmm.
Is it more cost effective? I don't know what the break points are in the different quantities that you're buying, but as opposed to doubling your quantity, does that make it cheaper than what we're looking at right now, or is it not worth it because we potentially lose another year of before obsolescence comes our way?
Well, my thought is, and we kind of trialed it out with the in-car computers for the police vehicles, is we went by 2 fiscal years, but we kept it in the calendar year. So we did the end of the fiscal year, and then we did the beginning of the following one. That helped us, number one, keep the same models of in-car computers and printers. So, because I just got an email 2 weeks ago that they've changed all the models and everything, and as far as maintenance goes, we have roughly about almost a dozen different computer models in the city. So for maintenance and administration, it's fun. So I think with, as far as the cloning process, as far as administration and things like that, I think lumping it together as far as one calendar year, and getting some assurances from the HP and Dell and kind of playing them against each other as far as, HP, we're getting rock bottom prices because we're getting, we're usually buying off of an educational contract. So the same prices that the school district is getting, we're getting. So I have no doubt about that. We have at least 6 purchasing contracts. The computers, all the items I'm buying, they're commodity items. I just get a part number, and whoever wants to give me the best price, I buy it from them. And they all know that, and they all are willing to work with me. Now, where it gets a little touchy is when, you have to suddenly buy on an instant versus now that I can say, hey, I have 40 this year, I have 40 next year, what can you do for me? Then the HPs and Dells are suddenly, okay, we understand that you have to spread this out, we'll work with you and lock in some prices and everything.
Thank you. As a quick follow-up to that, so from a timing perspective, given that this budget year hasn't started yet, would we be thinking that, to kind of do the carryover from one to the next? I don't see the number in there, but maybe that'll get added in the 1920 budget? Or is it down below on the next page? Okay. But anyway, just wondering, would that mean that we would start the calendar year, like in January, February of next year, and have that be through that?
Yes,
Span
correct.
through-
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yes,
we
so
kind
I'll-
of prep work and get people thinking and training and all that kind of stuff could happen this fall, and then you start the actual upgrades first of the year, which would be the second half of this fiscal year. Yep, thank you, perfect. There it is.
And why do we have to have them on, it's just because they're titled differently? Why can't we have department pieces 50% this year and then the same line item? Why do we have to have two different accounts? Just
You
because.
mean of the footnotes, because that's how the footnotes list.
Just how-
It's
yeah,
by
it's
year.
just- it's the
Yeah.
name of that and-
Yeah, thanks for helping with that connection there. So cool, so now I see the line item in there, and it sounds like we've got a good strategy from, kind of raising awareness, here's what it's going to be like, and then first of the year, which is the end of this cycle, and then the next one.
I'm budgeting roughly about 1,000 per computer. That will cover any monitors. We have most of our monitors, as far as we're stuck in 17-inch mode, most of them are getting to the 10-year mark. So we've definitely got the value out of them, but we're getting to the point now where there's a lot of programs now to take advantage not only of a larger screen, but a high-resolution screen. So, so some of that will certainly be purchased, possibly not at the same time, depending on what kind of prices. I know that because of the games, as far as end of quarter sales and end of the year, Black Friday, all that kind of stuff and everything. I don't want to pay for expediency. I'm looking for more value. It's the type of thing that I'm a cheapskate and I don't want to pay full price for it.
Sorry, one last follow-up
Yeah,
question.
sure.
So, changing all the machines out makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, in
Yes.
addition to the ability to run, modern operating system. What will we do with the old equipment? Is that employee buyback? Can they buy it? Do it to the schools? Do they go out to Socra for recycling? I just was curious.
Yes, Sacra will probably get some other recycling because a lot of the machines are approaching that 6 and 7 year mark. The machines that we have now, a small minority of them will be Windows 10 compliant. So those will probably go down to people that don't need the newest machines and everything. They'll be upgraded with newer hard drives and things like that and everything. But instead of spending maybe $1,000 for that machine, we might pay only $300 to upgrade it, have it Windows compliant, and still be able to use it. The machines that are going to be outdated and everything, hard drives most likely will be shredded, just because, especially in public safety with law enforcement stuff in there. We have a great contract, state contract that will shred all our hard drives. They'll pick them up, so I don't have to worry about that. The rest of them, I'll probably cannibalize them for any parts or anything, roll those into the new ones, and then the rest of them they'll be recycled. So.
One of the things that you've talked about is, but they just turn this into a training. Some training that we do with the public safety officers and other people is computer-based. But keep in mind that any of those that we don't have on the home floor that are still compliant could be stored in here in one of those cabinets we're going to get, and then brought out for either the emergency operations center operations or training. That's just another thought I want to throw out there.
Councilor Head?
I know there are also organizations that will take donations of sometimes pretty ancient computers and repurpose them for disadvantaged people. And so I don't know if that's something to look into.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. As long as there's nothing that I feel as far as a security risk, I would be more than happy to donate, yes.
On the topic of cannibalizing, a lot of the department heads and staff have gone to dual monitors, and we've done that at virtually no cost because Santa's cannibalized, to use this term, much of the items and equipment left behind by the courts. And so for a while, we need something, or somebody needs a second monitor, Santa's gone over and gotten something from the repository left behind by the former court employees, grabbed it and put it in. It's why one of the reasons why some of these are pretty old, but he's managed to do so at basically no cost, and almost all of us have seen an upgrade in the number of screens we have and efficiency that comes from that. So it's not new to be cannibalized.
And how we ever existed with one screen before.
One more.
Just a few lines off,
Yes.
this is just a minor issue. Printers for DB and G, I think that might be duplicated, because I think. we have
Yes,
some-
there's, yeah, we, with the chief being new, we've kind of tried to, as far as finance, try to bring all the IT under one budget, as far as he shouldn't have to worry about purchasing it. You know, just in my usual, purchasing, it should come out of my budget just for economies of scale and things like that. So yes, that was just an honest mistake on his part, so. Yeah.
I thought they wanted to press the stereo.
The rest, we're talking as far as just various support equipments, cables, adapters, widgets, gadgets, things like that. And then as far as 1920, the usual, I think upgraded firewall, that's probably should not be there as far as the 1920 budget. So we'll have it in this upcoming budget. So we'll make that correction. So computer software, we use the Microsoft Office 2010. That we have a little bit more time. Windows 7 goes away in January of 2020. Office 2010 goes away in October of 2020. So I am looking at either purchasing Office 2016 or whatever next version it is. I think it's 19, so I will be looking at that. LogMeIn as far as remote access software for the water and sewer department. Sean uses that. And then Dwayne uses in the building department, and I use it as far as promoting in. Adobe Acrobat, we have some older versions that will not be Windows 10 compliant. So that's just upgrading the licenses we already have. Our antivirus, we use Sophos. That's our usual yearly maintenance on that for the city. And then just our backup software as far as our normal yearly maintenance. So. The only other thing, as far as the last two line items would probably be the iPad management. $10,000 is not the number that should be in there. It's probably more like $2,000. So we'll make a correction on that.
What is this?
The iPad management on.
Told you you were saving this money.
That's 1,500, on the previous page.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
it's
yeah.
Google Ads.
Oh, it's
It's
yeah.
above the line always.
Yes. So it's just cut in half.
Yeah.
Never mind.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's all right, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be corrected?
No, it doesn't have to be corrected.
Google Apps.
Yes, Google Apps, yes. So,
Okay, yeah.
Microsoft licensing, will continue to stay compliant with that. And then the normal 1920 is pretty much everything else as far as any upgrades or things like that, so. As a side note, because of the WOW upgrades, we are trialing some new access points and things like that. I don't know if anybody has noticed, there is an open Berkley network now, as far as people can log in now. And then we have a private city network, so that when we start using tablets, we can start accessing things on our network. I'm looking at outdoor enclosures for the community center area, as far as to see how well they're going to perform. We need to put something out there. Realistically, we have a ton of bandwidth. Right now, we peeled off some. We're giving the library users a lot of speed. We roughly have about 1,300 to 1,500 users at the library, wireless users a month.
Wow.
And they're pushing out anywhere between half a terabyte to, I think it's maybe 3/4 of a terabyte of just downloading like crazy. No hiccups, nothing. It's been absolutely fantastic. We've been trialing it there for about 2 years now. Been very happy with it. It gives us the tools as far as what we can measure. We're going to start using that out in the parks to kind of see what the response is going to be. We have to start somewhere. We have to see what the demand is. It's very inexpensive. It's going to cost us about $500 to kind of gauge the interest in that, which I'm sure will be off the charts. We have all this speed where the city's using very little of it, to be honest with you. And so we can kind of route it over to the parks and and start seeing what we can do with that. Essentially, all the city buildings will have these type of access points. So at city council meetings, wherever, it will be open to the public and will have little to no impact as far as infrastructure goes within the city. We've shifted from more of a home office type environment to a small business, enterprise grade type equipment. So it's just a little blip as far as this speed and everything goes with that. So.
Any other questions for Stan?
This might become out of scope. Any thoughts on Wi-Fi in the downtown district?
I can tell you that the Wi-Fi with the system that we're using, and it's a lot of the other libraries are using it within the cooperative. It's called Open Mesh, which basically means a particular business might be able to put these access points in, and then other businesses would be able to, maybe a few storefronts down, do the same thing. And we might be able to share the costs as far as getting Wi-Fi down in the downtown area with little to no problem whatsoever. If we had some more city buildings, then we could install our own equipment and things like that. But I think that's probably something that we should talk to the chamber, the DDA about. It's been implemented in other, talking to the company, it's been implemented in other larger downtown areas. So I don't see any reason why we couldn't start at one end and slowly move down as far as that goes. So, and the access points, as far as just the outdoor ones, are $250. You could get something smaller, for some of the access points are only $100. It's very, very robust as far as scalability goes. So you can start small and think kind of bigger. So.
Anything else on your wish list?
No, I can't think of anything right now. I think everybody's been very gracious and very helpful. So, as long as my budget goes through, I'll be
I just know that we see technology evolving, obviously, at an extremely rapid clip. And the way municipalities operate, we always tend to be behind because of the time it takes to do things and to get them implemented and get them approved and get through all of the red tape that comes along with anything in the city. So again, if there are things that we can be more proactive on and get out in front of instead of having to react to things as they come, trying to stay as current or even ahead if possible. And I know oftentimes it always comes down to the budget, but again, I'm not saying we're going to approve everything, but we kind of want to know what our options are. Again, the technology is becoming a way that, for whatever reason, good or bad, it's how we communicate. And we need to make sure that our residents need to communicate with us. We need to be able to be responsive and have the capability to let them do. Not only communicate with us, but to get information from us as quickly as possible about just going on Facebook or the current methods that we're using. So it's something that we need to kind of focus on consistently and make sure that moving forward, we need to make sure that we're on the cutting edge as much as possible in terms of what we can do. Seeing no other comments, thank you, Stan.
Okay, thank you.
Enjoy the wonderful evening.
Yes. Thank you. I'll declare to my boss.
Moving on.
All right.
Your downtown development.
Your DDA budget starts on page 183 of your book. We'll go through both revenues and expenditures on this particular item. As mentioned before, the DDA's revenue comes from within its own district. The property taxes are scheduled to have a slight increase, and your TIF revenues, or the DDA's TIF revenues, are conservatively anticipated to be flat from the year previous. So we are hoping both of those projections come to full light and ideally exceeding on both, but in the interest of being as conservative as possible on revenues, so we're projecting near flat increases. Likewise, state reimbursements through PPT or personal property tax, they need to be applied for and basically granted by Treasury every year. Hopefully that comes to fruition. Treasury's administration of the new PPT program has been, I would say, iffy at best and inconsistent at worst. But again, like I said, we're budgeting for basically flat from year previous. Our hope is that it doesn't reduce, but it is somewhat likely based on some of the feedback that we've gotten from other communities. One item I want to note is under contributions and donations, the DDA is budgeting for $20,000 in contributions. They are looking to do more fundraising, looking to do more fundraising or revenue acquisition outside of the normal TIF and taxable means. The DDA is pursuing right now a 501c3 certification to have sort of a parallel organization that 501c3 designation would open it up to some other funding sources. Just recently, the DDA also became a Main Street Oakland County community, and so they're hoping that that will likewise spur some additional and new revenue items. So, likewise, budgeting for corporate donations as well as event sponsorships. So you'll see, on total contributions and donations, you'll see a $15,000 jump budgeted. I know the director and the various volunteer boards that have been set up will be very actively pursuing making those numbers come to light. So,
Councilor Ham?
The $20,000 roughly contributions. How sure are we that that's gonna, we're gonna be in that ballpark?
I know the director has a high level of confidence that they can hit that mark. And our discussions with her and the discussions that they've had at the board level, it's a number that she feels pretty confident that they can hit throughout the course of the fiscal year. So in total, they're projecting just under $300,000 in revenue for this year. Moving on to the expenditure side, obviously they don't have any staff, like full-time staff, so their director serves on a contractual basis, which is reflected in the contractual services line item. There's not a lot of, jumping up, there's not a lot of office supplies to speak of, as they don't have an office. So that number stays relatively low. As addressed, the contractual services is how they employ the executive director. There is a website that they maintain, downtownberkeley.org, I believe it is. And the board strategic planning, equipment rental, and professional development all are items that she has discussed at length with her board. There is a finance committee involved, and they go through and they review these items. Equipment rental is tied to the various events that they intend to put on. So as they do different fun stuff, or they rent pop-up tents, I'm trying to think of some other ones that shuttle would be a good one. And so that's how they plan to administer that. And again, so professional development, being a Main Street community now, there is the intent to continue to send members to conferences. Main Street, last year, they sent a fantastic contingent. I mentioned a couple council members, Matt Church-Lap, he was on it as well. So even city staff, some of our elected officials, they made the trip to Kansas City for the Main Street conference this year. I think they came back with a wealth of knowledge. Each of those that attended then gave presentations to the board to relay what they had learned. Pretty excited at the way that they've utilized those funds. Moving down to the next page, they do budget for board review expenses. Commercial properties go right to the Michigan Tax Tribunal. They don't have to go through the local board review. And so we budget for any items, if a case is won at the state level, and there is some reimbursement required, that would be a discrepancy or a dispute about taxable values. There is some monies that they would have to repay because of that, so they budget for that every year. Moving on to page 186, under DDA operations. Let's see, there's internal services that are budgeted. I believe that covers, sorry? Payroll, yeah. Okay. So that covers payroll associated with the DDA, contractual services. Let's see. You see there's items budgeted for memberships and dues, audit services, general services, and telephone. These are items that each of our departments also have every year. Our DDA funds are audited along with the city's annual fiscal audit. Moving on to the next page, special events. You'll see there are funds to cover some of when the DDA funds a event and there's some staff work involved in it. There are FICA and cost sharing for HPLO as well. Moving down to contractual services, they are again funding the Merry Month activities. They have a line item for Ladies Night Out. They do have a line item for the Downtown Summer Concert Series. I don't think they're likely to use that. I don't think the juniors this year are going to be doing the Downtown Summer Concert Series. They are contributors to Art Bash and the Street Art Festival put on with the Chamber. Likewise, they contribute to the Oakland County Irish Festival or County Oakland Irish Fest, and then the Holiday Lights program as well. There's funding there for the Holiday Lights. As you recall, they've expanded their Holiday Lights offering in the last few years. There's a lot more snowflakes as it was last year. So basically, from the moment you cross over 11 Mile heading north on Coolidge, you see they're decorated for the holiday, and the same is true. They've expanded out along 12 Mile as well. So far more glowing merriment to be enjoyed through increasing that funding. The Art and About concert series is intended to be an annual thing that actually splits the budget year. So they had their first Art and About last Friday. Those of us that endured the rain got to see a couple things, but there are instances throughout the year, not just before and after July, where Art and About is going to be going on. And same is anticipated for summer of 19 as well. There, appropriations, going to the Department 825 under appearance. You see they're not responsible for street maintenance as they were in the past. That's been rolled into your major and local roads under appearance. Marketing and advertising is where you're going to see probably the largest jump over the last, from where it was 3 years ago. The DDA continues to try to market downtown Berkley, not only the events going on that it's sponsoring or that it has partial sponsorship for, but just generally things going on, whether it's business sales, whether it's its own events, or just generally trying to gain more awareness for downtown Berkley. The DDA is working to try to drive as much business to our downtown and commercial areas as possible. So we applaud them in that endeavor. Moving down to market development. They also are working, they work through a market analysis. They want to maintain that document, make sure it's up to date, make sure it's useful to the businesses, so that those looking to start a business, they have a leg up, and that's also going to help with our recruitment as we go through the market analysis process and see what types of businesses, types of industries are underrepresented in our downtown, and it would help tailor a recruitment package for that type of business. So again, they're trying to be very strategic in how they allocate those funds. Streetscape and design, perhaps one of the largest capital items. They're investing in the flower basket program, expanding it. It was, remember a couple years ago they demoed that along Coolidge. They are ready to expand that out onto 12 Mile. So we're excited about that. Investment in public art and placemaking, continuing not only the mural project, but looking for ways to incorporate public art into the downtown experience. And then, again, as mentioned earlier, funding the market analysis. That's a $60,000 investment in working with our businesses.
Councilman Blanchard?
question on design guidelines. Haven't we been looking at those, this budget for the next, or for this coming year? There's nothing, it's all going to be done? So-
Yeah, they intend to round out that project.
It's done, okay. I thought that was more of an ongoing thing, let's see.
Likewise, as mentioned earlier, business recruitment is going to be part of the DDA's purview. Again, being very specific and strategic in how they're recruiting our businesses and filling some of the, we have very little vacancy thankfully within the downtown district, but when one does come up, the DDA wants to know exactly what business would make our downtown experience more complete and then go after and specifically recruit somebody from that industry. So looking forward to that, and they would be working on that in conjunction with our community development director as well. So to make sure not only if that promise is made or a promise is kept once they start going through the business, the process of starting their business here in the city for the and likewise, we're not just talking about working with new businesses, but also helping support existing businesses as much as possible, so that those that already operate here have the opportunity to be supported, hopefully grow and expand, and then maybe renovate whole buildings at a time. But certainly the focus is not just always in the next new business, but it's supporting our existing, those that have been here and continue to make the downtown a great place. And the last item on under the DDA, there is some investments in wayfinding signage that has been long planned, and they're working through the design process on that now. And so over the next few years, the DDA intends to, in the next budget year, to lay out its new signage and get that installed. The city as a whole, we're splitting that up between the next 2 budget years, but we certainly have a lot more ground to cover than the district does. I believe that rounds out. Of note is the estimated appropriations across the 814 is $390,000, as I noted earlier. Looking at about $300,000 in revenue. So they do have, they do anticipate dipping into their fund balance by about $93,511. That brings their accumulated fund balance from just over $200,000 to just about $100,000. In 1920, they do not anticipate a dip in the fund balance, but a contribution in the fund balance. So while they're making some major investments in this budget year, hoping that some of those yield fruits in years subsequent, but they don't require a maintenance at the same level as they do funding maintenance at this level. And so they actually will start to build that back up so that they can continue to make investments and remain a viable organization to support toward downtown businesses. If Vivian was here, she would have said all that fun right.
Any questions with the DDA? We have none covered. Okay, just keep moving. Good job.
Page 202, we have capital project funds, and John and Lori probably best encapsulate those.
Well, there's not a lot of, I mean, there's not much going on in the capital projects. But, nothing's happening in sidewalks until next year. And I really, though, I had a question about this transfer, the transfers out that's in 17-18. I'm
Yes.
sorry to come back to this.
Sure.
But I really think that's supposed to be in 18-19.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, because I don't see any expenses really in 17-18. It was only like $5,000 under the architectural or whatever. Darshell, remember you said there really were going to be no expenses this year. It would be next year if we did that for the plans. So I'm thinking that 100,000, and there's also a transfer in, of course, to the general fund for the 100,000. So I think that's in the wrong year.
Okay, we'll clarify that for
Yeah.
tomorrow's discussion.
And that'll change those balances.
So that's really the only thing in there.
Which page? I feel like we are on.
I know, I feel like we're all.
I'm sorry, 204.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay, yeah.
So we
I'm
blew
sorry.
past, we started at 202 and
Well-
kind of went through some other stuff
We were
quickly.
looking at court and we were trying to figure out where.
Well, because there's really nothing happening. I mean, there's a little bit of revenue
Yeah.
for investments, right? And then there's no expenses. The only thing is that transfer in there.
Okay.
And I just keep coming back to, I think it's in the wrong year.
Sure.
And then the sidewalk fund, of course, there's nothing going on until next year, when hopefully we start that project. And any revenue that comes from that, if it's a special assessment, I'm on page 208.
Or, just a moment, on the topic of the sidewalk fund, while not reflected in here, that process really began last Friday. We actually went, myself, Derek, Sean, went on a walk with the gentleman who's going to be representing HRC in the sidewalk program. So as he's going through it and kind of taking a look at what items that he needs to know, whether it be lifting sidewalks, lowered sidewalks, uneven ones, we walked with him, myself, let's say Derek and Sean, to make sure that they weren't being either over or under aggressive, that what they were logging was appropriate. I know there were some concerns about the oversight of that project, so we wanted to make sure we took a very hands-on approach in finding out how they were logging it, and getting a sense for how much time this could possibly take, and getting a sense for what the program looked like. So we started at Elwood and 11 Mile, and we walked with them up the block, kind of over and back down, and made a circle there. And we did find, I think the whole thing, I think it took us an hour and a half to do those 2 long blocks. So there were a lot of stopping, a lot of discussing, a lot of clarification for HRC, so that they don't get too far into this process with some question marks that remain unanswered. So, and not reflected here, the engineering portion is going to be captured elsewhere, but wanted to give some context to that discussion.
Councilor Bennett?
Is that southwest quarter is going to be the study area?
Yeah. After reviewing kind of all the sections and taking a look at what we think is the easiest to model against the city as a whole, that's the one we ultimately decided on.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
So anyway, and so they're looking at doing the, work on it, the construction and such in 1920, and so then it's supposed to be an assessment program, right? So they would be assessed, and then, so revenues would start coming in the following year, 2021. So.
Thank you, Lori.
And those are all just estimates at this point,
Anything else in the capital project fund? Okay.
Hopping all the way back to page 82 for our public safety retirement system. John, if you will.
Okay. Page 82, we have HDLO costs are being totally captured now in this account for ESB 45 purposes.
That's the required gas fee, not the
Yes.
discretionary. In the context of our discussion tomorrow, we'll look at the general fund as a whole, that they were brought up. Gas fee will probably be something that we're going to use some of that general fund for. Yeah. I'd like to have a conversation about what the gas fee.
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking.
It's a major concern. It certainly isn't going away, and I know that we're making the required contribution here. Homeowner, the discretionary zeros across the board projected in the future or something. I just want to have a conversation with the rest of the council on if it makes sense to maybe use some of the general fund percentage.
And that's all I have to say on that subject.
Actually, that concludes our program this evening, staff portion.
Okay, questions, comments on stuff that we've gone through today? We've got some notes. I know you guys might take some notes on some things that we want to address tomorrow in the greater context, certainly the loan from the water, general fund discussion and percentage, and there's maybe some conversation on not holding as much in that fund. Is there anything else today that we want to make sure we carry forward tomorrow? Other than that, thank you, everybody that was here, starting on the staff side, all the work, I know, John, that you put in, and the board that you put in. Matt, that you put in as well, getting this, I know the process wasn't as seamless as we'd like it to be in the future in terms of getting all the information, being able to synthesize that. Certainly welcome to you, Ginger. Jump right in here. Baptism by fire, like hanging out on the side right now. But this gives you a pretty solid idea of how we can operate moving forward. Anything that you'd like to implement in this, we look at it now. Moving forward. If there are no other comments, questions? Okay, solid evening. Oh, we're past our 9 o'clock. And you know that we need to have a vote on that. All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Support. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned.